we had a conversation with him where he told me is like, you're always going to be presented to two paths, and one path will be like more pleasant to maybe go into, and then the other path might look dark. That don't worry, just go where you might be struggling, but just have faith that everything's going to work out. I landed in Mexico on Monday afternoon. Tuesday night at 11:30, police came to the house to arrest me, and I was not there. You as an adult should have a choice what to do, right? You can be educated, right? But like, at which point the government has the power to tell you what to do with your life, right? That's kind of been my life, testing my environment and to see what can I get away with towards what I'm going towards, right? So like it's like, imagine like you walking on ice and you're like tippy-topping and you're just trying to figure out like, do I go here or do I go there, right?
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, I Need More From You. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Oakes. This podcast is meant to be both educational and entertaining. We're diving into all things health and wellness along with life because let's be honest, we all have more to give. Just real talk, real life. This is your space for laughs, learning, and leveling up. So buckle up and let's thrive. No excuses. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast of I Need More From You. We have an awesome guest joining us today. This is Coach Vlad, raw milk man of Florida. And I just want to say, I met this guy, like this story of how I met him, it's just absolutely crazy. So I was like, you've got to come on the podcast, share your story. You've got so much knowledge and just your background has just been, you've gone through a lot and you've overcome a lot. So it's definitely something to share and inspire others. But basically what I want to say, I was working out on the beach with my family in Miami Beach. We were at Muscle Beach, right? Is that what they call it?
Yes.
Okay. Working out on Muscle Beach, just, doing our thing. And then up walks Vlad over here and he says to us, he's like, you guys look like a raw milk family. And I'm like, what the heck? How does this happen? Like, raw milk just tends to find me. I go find it. Yes, I put in a lot of work at hunting down the best raw milk, but I'm literally working out on the beach with my family. Vlad walks up. He literally has raw milk in a backpack and wants us to sample raw milk. I'm like, this is just crazy to me, but absolutely amazing. So you've got an incredible story about raw milk, how you got started in that. And, I'm a huge believer in raw milk. Raw Dairy Queen over here. So I just okay, let's just dig in. Let's go through your story. Tell us about you, Vlad. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure, Kristen, to be with you. And yes, Coach Vlad, aka Milkman of Miami and expanding across Florida.
Yes.
And it's incredible to get present to when you connect to God and you just kind of walk in path, in faith and no fear, and you just know that everything's going to come together. I remember that day, obviously hustling, doing multiple different things. And I'm like, I know I got to go and sample milk because I want to get more people on board with this stuff. But I was kind of hesitant to go or not. And then I'm like, Holy Spirit tells me.
That can be kind of intimidating, just like going up to people and asking them, hey, do you want to sample raw milk? Unless you're someone like me and I'm like, yes, I love raw milk. Like, that's intimidating in itself, right? So it
is a challenge to overcome for sure, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing that. It's always there's a little bit of nervousness, but I learned through the experience that if you have this butterfly effect, sometimes it just shows that you really care about something.
Yeah,
because
exactly
right. So emotions are emotions, and we tend sometimes to label them to kind of ease ourselves or ease the experience. But I learned through my personal experience and, reading scriptures and then just learning from different people that it's truly for going through experience, you're able to grow and gain wisdom. And I believe in this, movie life experience that we all subjected to live. I think it's really the underlying purpose is to gain as much wisdom as you can. And I don't think there's any other way to really comprehend what you're up against is to go through experiences and be present to them as you unfold. So yeah, that day I went to the beach. I have my kind of cooler I got from one of the nutritional companies where I work, and I stuck the gallon inside, and I had my little Dixie cups prepared.
Cups,
yes, for sure. Like rock. Sampling is the way.
Yep.
And then I just walked the beach as I walked in different places that I know with people, and I'm like, have you ever tried raw milk or not? And some people have, some people not.
What's your typical like response that you get from people?
It's really spread out, right? Like some people never tried it, and it's like,
or they don't even know what you're talking about. Like raw milk, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't know, and I remember, being a health coach since 2000. I obviously learned a lot of things in terms of nutrition and how people respond to different things. And I remember in 2007, this really good movie came out called Food Inc.
Okay.
And it really kind of broke down the whole food industry and how pharma
infiltrated it.
Well, yeah, and then the factory farming and like how everything is produced, and it's like even if you're trying to eat quote unquote healthy, you're actually doing more damage than good, and there's all this mixed messages that you receive, like what's
real and what's
right?
not.
You're supposed to drink lots of water. You're not supposed to drink water. You're supposed to eat eggs. Don't eat eggs. Meat is bad, although we ate meat forever.
Meat's bad.
Right?
Eat seed oils. All the things.
Yeah, for sure. So it's so yeah. I remember that Food Inc. movie, and I would give people the DVDs to watch. But the reason why I'm so passionate about raw milk, and I told you the story earlier, I want to share that with people, is when I was growing up in Kazakhstan, I was born and raised in Kazakhstan.
Born and raised in Kazakhstan.
Soviet Union at the time.
You're the second Kazakhstan that I've ever met, by the way.
And isn't that interesting?
Interesting. It all circles back.
We'll fill people in a moment, but that just shows you how connected we are in this realm of possibilities. And when you're in tune with something that you're so passionate about, it's almost impossible not to connect to other people like yourself. And once you come together with people that are so passionate about something that is just even bigger than themselves, it just like expands big time. That's why I'm excited to do this.
Yes.
The Dairy Queen and Milk Mill coming together to make milk raw again.
Yes.
So yeah, the story goes is when I was 7 years old, 5 years old, I would drink raw milk warm straight from the cow because we would go to outside of the city. I was born in capital of Kazakhstan, so it's a pretty big city. But
so there's not like a lot of
there's no like cows walking the
city,
streets, right? But it's a capital with like 1 million people living in my town at the time, city at the time. And but we would go outside of the city to the village, and then we'll get raw milk straight that day. And sometimes the same people would come to the city and bring milk early in the morning. But to get the milk from that morning that's still warm and fresh, you have to be first in line. And at the time, I lived with my grandma. My grandma was on disability even when my mom was a teenager with Parkinson's. And when I just turned 7, went to high school, she fell and broke her arm. So then my mom transferred me back to live with my grandma, and I was kind of looking after her, helping around the house since I was 7. That's what you do back home, right? You just do what you're supposed to, help the family. But I would wake up in the morning and go get the milk products, and raw milk would be the first in line to get the warm one from that morning. And I would wake up at 5 a.m. like before even anyone would up, because I was so excited to go and be first in line. And my goal was to beat all the grandmas, to be first one in line, right? And I would be so proud that I would come home and like, look, I got the milk. And then sometimes they would beat me, because then there was a competition. So I was a competition with grandmas to get like the freshest milk from that day. It was hilarious. So I kind of like, it's been part of my genesis.
You enjoyed it.
And then the regular milk from the store, I don't even drink. Like I just
the regular milk in Kazakhstan, was that raw too? Everything there was basically raw.
I mean, I think no, there was pasteurized too, I would imagine, but like it's just, you would know when you get the freshest milk.
So it was like, I'm just trying to compare it to what it is now, right?
Yeah.
Everything around us is pasteurized unless you go out and seek
raw.
raw.
No, I think it's still better quality. Like, usually you go to Europe and you eat pasta every day and you don't feel bloated, right? And then people come back to United States and they bloated right away. It's just because how food is produced here, unfortunately, is definitely not for the benefit. But the simple way I break down the food paradigm that people within the United States especially are subjected to is that it's so involved with man involved in the production of it, instead of just leaving it the way God created. So
it's like complicated everything.
Well, yeah, either by, I don't know, mistake or on purpose, maybe with some sinister motives, right? We can go down
sick, you're profitable.
Yeah, right. There's a big rabbit hole that we can go down to, and we can discuss a little bit of that. But like if there's no real profit in people being healthy in United States, unfortunately, right?
Exactly.
And I'm so excited about the new administration being, and Make America Healthy Again is like the government policy now, right? Like
which is incredible. And like, I don't care what political party that you are affiliated with, if you can't get behind making America healthy again, I just, that doesn't even make sense to me.
I basically can understand people not getting behind that slogan is because I'm an activist for the last 5 years, so that's kind of the quick jump to my story is, I lived in Canada since 99, and for 20 years worked as a health coach and server in the restaurants and sales person, bunch of different jobs. But then the lockdown started in 2020 and I became a freedom activist.
The lockdown 2020 for COVID.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And I became an activist because I knew right away, like all this propaganda with cases and modeling, like they literally subjected people to hypothetical scenarios of future possible things happening, and that's why we have to stay locked up. I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like nothing is going on, and what you're projecting is not even happening. That's what the models are. And again, there's a big rabbit hole to go to how Bill Gates paid the Imperial College with Neil Ferguson to fabricate those modeling of like multiple thousands of cases that they're going to be spreading. And they were doing that even way before 2020. They were doing for SARS outbreak in the past and other, all the swine flu and everything. This is kind of standard policy that they did. Mm-hmm. So when 2020 rolled around, they already were prepared to kind of expose all of that. But what I'm getting to is as a freedom activist, I can understand people not getting behind even something positive. It's just because they've been conditioned to reject things that might be associated with something else. So being born in the Soviet Union, I was subjected to brainwash propaganda from birth, because that's how things were back there. That I always say this story to another sidetrack story, is that when I was 3 years old, I was in Moscow with my parents, and it was February, middle of the winter, like very cold, like very Minnesota,
cold. Yeah,
or Ottawa, right, for people from Canada. During the trucker convoy, it was very cold. But I was heartbroken and devastated and almost had a meltdown. My mom told me is because I wanted to go see Grandpa Lenin. Like at 3 years old, I was conditioned and brainwashed to think that Lenin, a dead mummy on the Red Square, was my actual grandfather. And I wanted to go and see him so bad.
Oh, wow.
And my mom had to explain to me is that this is the middle of the winter. It's like minus 40 Celsius, and the line is like 4 hours, so we can't really go outside and just like be there. So no, you can't go see Grandpa Lenin. Mm-hmm. And I was devastated as a 3 years old. So looking back, it just shows you how incredibly powerful brainwash propaganda can be to completely socially engineer people to act against themselves, to act for their own demise. Because what real benefit is there for a 3-year-old child to have a cult figure like that, a person who basically destroyed royal Russia, right? Like it was Bolshevik revolution in 1917, created nothing but famine and disaster and death all across Russia at the time, right? And that's like literally over 100 years ago. And what we're seeing now, we're seeing updated version of that spreading across Western world, especially between Australia, between the whole Europe, UK, obviously Canada. We just reselected
to continue the process.
World Economic Forum puppet, like the United Kingdom banker that destroyed United Kingdom, and now he's going to be doing that in Canada officially, because he actually has been doing it unofficially. What most people don't know, Mark Carney, that got now selected as a prime minister, he was advisor for Trudeau for the last 5 years at the very minimum. So all the policies, all the disastrous policies, including freezing bank accounts of Canadians who were peacefully protesting.
That's fun.
He was the one that actually suggested to do that. As a banker, right? He would know that if you subject people for not having access to your own money, for even food and clothing, shelter for your children, then you might be more compliant to the demands of the government. Isn't that interesting how that works? But then they can say, we don't really force you to do anything, right? Because we don't really force you. So yeah, it's the subversion from multiple levels that people are subjected these days. But like I said, they are oblivious to it because they just don't realize what they've been.
They don't know any different.
They don't.
Because it's like just what it is.
Yeah,
it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. So that's just expected as that's the norm.
Yeah, it's like you don't know how food tastes. The reason why I brought Food Inc. movie is because in that movie was showing that children didn't even recognize what it is a tomato. Like that chef, Jamie Oliver chef, he was part of that movie, I think, and he was showing to children like different vegetables and then asking them what it is, and kids just wouldn't even know what it is because they never seen the vegetable.
Wow.
And like, oh, this is what you make ketchup out of. Oh, I know ketchup. So children knew ketchup, but couldn't recognize an actual tomato.
They knew the processed food, not the whole food.
Exactly, right? So, but the reason why they don't know is because it's not part of the environment. You know, what we discussed a little bit before we started today is that, you know, the best way to raise children is just to have them with you as you go about your day and doing whatever daily things you have to do. And that's how we're going to learn about life, about experiences, how to interact with others, right? And then it also puts you in a position that if you know that you model an experience for your children, well, then you're going to be behaving differently too, right?
Yes.
Because now it's
Those
not just...
eyeballs are watching
oh, yes.
you.
Oh, yes. Because you can say all you want, and you're blessed with 5 children, I'm blessed with 3. And, you know, it's definitely a gift from God. And it comes with everything, you know, challenges and opportunities and blessings more than anything. So...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a wild journey for sure. Last 10 years especially. I actually shared on my Facebook
I gotta
post.
find your Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you a link after. But if I send you, I think this a post I did 10 years ago with a guy like older gentleman in like a suit with like a beard and like, and it said, right?
Yes.
And it said underneath, "Don't live the same day for 75 years and call it a life." And I reflected on that post. I made it like May 4th, 10 years ago. And I didn't recognize at that time, I do now, how much power we have when we just imagine things. Because I almost looked at that guy right now. Like I can actually, I'm going to make an actual like photo shoot. I'll show you after, right? Side by side. And I'm going to put a testimony. I made this post 10 years ago. And then I'm going to list every single thing that I did for the last 10 years, including having 3 children, including traveling across the world at this point, including being a part of numerous political campaigns across Canada at all levels of the government, including starting Hugs Over Mask movement. I'm going to show
Hugs Over Masks
into the camera. This is what started literally 5 years ago. Like it's a 5-year anniversary of Hugs Over Masks.
And you have to explain to us what Hugs Over Masks
So
is.
Hugs Over Masks is a movement that launched in Toronto on May 26 in 2020. And that was the 3rd weekend of coming together to protest the government mandates imposed on people to stay home, to wear the mask
because of COVID-19,
because of the spread hypothetically of all the things that they tried to impose on people, and obviously shut down your business. You know, nobody was allowed to be open.
Can't be at work. Can't go anywhere.
Well, definitely can go to the gym. You definitely can go to the gym.
All the gyms were closed.
You definitely can exercise.
We were like black marketing, getting into and going to the gym.
Same
and like
here.
you had to be sneaky about it. If you wanted to go work out, it was like
you had to know
down
somebody.
the street. You had to know where you're going. Keep the dang shades down.
What a wild time to be alive.
That's ridiculous.
That was half a decade ago.
That's ridiculous.
So when we say now about like crazy things around us, just reflect on 5 years ago, how ridiculous it was back then. So like, honestly, after 2020, I look at this world as a clown world. We're living in a clown world and people acting like clowns. And you can't, how are you going to treat a clown? With compassion, I guess.
Clowns are kind of scary.
Some of them are. Some of them are very scary. Some of them are, welcoming enough to invite them to the birthday party too, right? So it's like you have to pick and choose the clowns in your environment. But so Hugs Over Masks got started in Toronto in 2020, and the idea was about families with children coming together in a park, just being humans.
Because you had to play. I remember this like during COVID, and if your kids wanted to play together, first of all, they needed to have a mask on. They had to be in a garage with the door open, so you're getting fresh air, ventilation. You're not coming inside. Okay, so this was started so that kids could go and play at the park together, essentially. Or you bring people together to go to the park.
Bring people together because people were scared. People didn't know what to do, but people wanted to do something. And
cabin fever was crazy.
Well, it was nuts. And the reality is that we would have the government agents, aka enforcement, police, whatever, bylaws, officers, etc., intimidating families with children that just wanted to come together at the park. So then, up to that point, I was a part of Herbalife nutritional company, and they have a very strong personal development curriculum. And with Jim Rohn, that I was privileged to meet in person, and Les Brown, and a bunch of other tremendous people, and even the leadership within the company. Having a lot of skills for the 20 years being part of a nutritional company, and attending a lot of personal development courses as well, landmark education, and Tony Robbins and Les Brown, Jim Rohn, just constantly listening to things. Like I always listen to stuff. Like you see me even with my wired headphones on the beach, right? Like I'm always listening to stuff.
That's what first caught my attention. I actually saw him at the beach gym before he actually approached us. Not that same day. This was like another day, and I was like, oh wow, he's wearing wired, headphones, because not a lot of people wear wired headphones. No. So I knew, like, okay, he's onto something here. I had no idea that you were into raw dairy as well, but I just, first of all, he was wearing a tank top that said "Hugs Over Mask," and then he was walking around with his headset. So I was like, okay. He's onto something.
Well, and that was the point of Hugs Over Masks.
That's why I accepted milk from you, because I'd seen you walking around and I already kind of like, all right, he's not trying to poison us.
Yeah, right? No, and that's fair. Like I'm offering something to drink to you and your children, right? So you never know, right?
Yeah,
but
never know. Okay, sorry.
No, it's good. So yeah, the point of Hugs Over Mask was to educate families about they have rights to come together. The government has no right to tell them not to come together. So I was doing my best to create leaders within communities all across Canada. We were successful. I built a little team of people to kind of help manage, because we had 20 chapters across Canada in 3 months.
20 chapters?
We built over 20 chapters in Canada, over 8 in the United States, 1 in Australia, all within 3 months of just starting this movement. But because the branding and the message was so powerful, Hugs Over Masks. And the reason why I even say over, because a lot of people in the beginning were asking, like, Vlad, why didn't you say hugs, not mask? Yeah, so the reason why Hugs Over Mask is because I learned through personal development is that if you want to expand something, if you want to build something, you want to build the energy of expansion rather than like negation. And when you say hugs, not mask, you're negating something. When you say over, it's like you overpower, you overtake. So it has a very different connotation. And I was very present to that. And I still remember I was sitting on a couch like right now in Toronto, and I'm like thinking I want to create something powerful as a message, as a movement that can have multiple purposes. And I'm like, okay, Hugs Over Masks, because hugs represents
the unity and bringing people together.
And it's something children do intuitively. At that point, my son just turned 4 years old, and I obviously was already present even before how children interact. But once you become a parent, it's even extra perspective that you gain. So, but yeah, hugs is something children do intuitively. They just hug each other, and it's about closeness and bringing people together, and it's just a human kind of experience. But there's also a lot of health benefits from hugs, right? If you actually hug somebody for 20 seconds, you're able to help them with their anxiety or depression or anything else. It's just there's something powerful about human connection, and obviously
stimulating serotonin,
right? And then masks is obviously what we were forced to do. And also hugs is because it meant that we would be disobeying the government telling us that we cannot come together. So within the slogan, I already created something like a call to action of disobedience and non-compliance, but package it in such a childish, like childless kind of, not childful experience, or whatever you want to call it. Playful, yeah, thank you. So playful kind of experience, childlike experience, right? Mm-hmm. And then mask is a sign of oppression. Slaves would be forced to wear masks in public because that's how they're not allowed to eat or speak or anything like that. And it's obviously a symbol of subversion, right? But over just meant that you're going to overpower and overtake. So literally with hugs, we can overpower the tyranny. Like with goodness, with God, with love, with humanity, with just everything, we can overpower the evilness, etc. Right? So that's why the message was so powerful. And regardless of how much censorship and propaganda they were trying to put against the movement that I started, they were not successful. How much
censorship?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
So the government was so threatened. Obviously, we were successful building so fast. Like my mission was to build like 100 chapters before the end of that year. And we were on track before we got sabotaged. But I digress for that story later. But the point is the government created alternative movement. Like they hired students to start a movement that they called Masks Over Hugs. So they literally created a movement, and they would pay the students to set up tables to be like a counter protest to the protests that we were doing across the country. Because I had 20 chapters, that means 20 different cities, towns across Canada on a weekend would come together as families with kids so they can hug each other. And for that, the government investigated me as an international terrorist.
Of course. Wow.
Right?
Yep.
Because I wanted children and parents to come and hug each other and just play music together and just be humans
just have the
in the park.
Together.
Yeah, just experience life the way the government said you're not allowed to do. So it was...
So you were now labeled as a terrorist.
Pretty much, because when the CSIS, which is the Canadian version of CIA, they would go to some of the people that I knew, and they'll show them the badge, and they would interrogate them about me. Like, they would ask questions: how long do you know Vlad? How does Vlad earn income? Do you know that he gets funded by Russia? I'm like, when do I get that money?
Funded by Russia.
Yes. So they tried to frame me as a Russian asset.
Russian spy.
Yeah, for sure. So I always joke around. The reason why I have multiple phones is because that's the first lesson they teach you in KGB school. I just play along.
Oh my gosh.
You have to have fun with people, right? Because otherwise it just becomes too boring. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. On a conversation of hugs of a mask and the movement, I want to give you a gift. Make Canada free again.
Make Canada free again. So, this is cute. Put my hat on. Mm-hmm. How does it look, Bianca?
I love it.
Love it.
It fits very well.
Red's my color.
All right. Perfect. Thanks,
Vlad.
So my pleasure. So Hugs of a Mask movement was the first one that I started in May 26 of 2020. Mm-hmm. And then the second movement that I started, even within the same year, was called We Are All Essential. And We Are All Essential was about Business Empowerment Network. It was to help businesses to come together. Once I helped families to come together, I wanted businesses to come together to support each other, to stand against tyranny of Canadian government at all levels, at municipal, provincial, and federal level, because they had multiple different things that people need to understand.
And this was started even with the investigation going on and then trying to come after you. That's when Make Canada Free Again also launched. Or the movement.
So the movement Hugs of a Mask was the first one. We All Essential was the second one. And We All Essential, I was still kind of thinking that we still have an opportunity to do something within the country before like really big changes. Like in 2020, I was naive, thinking that we'll be able to kind of end this maybe within a year. I thought that
you would have enough.
We will be successful enough. Yes,
to make an impact.
100%. I was 100% confident that with this momentum that we had, with building Hugs of a Masks, like we built 20 chapters across Canada, all the publications, all the newspapers, all the news channels, etc. They could not avoid by saying the slogan, because they had to call the slogan when they talked about us. And by them calling the slogan Hugs of a Mask, they helped promote us. Mm-hmm. By them making posts in different medias bashing us, they brought people to us because people were looking for us.
Wanting that outlet.
So in them trying to bring us down, they elevated us beyond measure. And that's why Hugs of a Mask became such a threat that they actually sent an undercover agent that I know now that was, who basically sabotaged the movement.
Wow.
100%.
They were an insider.
Yeah. I had an insider that I brought in.
That's terrible.
That's life. Once you go out, that's life.
That is life. You think that they're on your team, mm-hmm. and they're just destroying from within. Yeah.
So I brought one guy at first. I told him, like, help me build this movement across Canada. Like, let's just do this together. You know, I just want to help people and avoid this tyranny, because I know where this is going. And then we brought two more people after, and then the woman that came on board specifically, now that I see, she corrupted the other two guys that I had, and they literally wanted to oust me out of Hugs of a Mask. They want to kick me out of the movement, to take it over and change it.
Of course.
And I'm like, no, we're not changing Hugs of a Mask, because they tried to say, Mask's not really going to last for too long. It's already dying initiative. We need to move on to other things. It's getting too aggressive out there. You know, people getting too many issues trying to promote Hugs of a Masks. Like they tried to bring down all this momentum that we were building. And I tried to explain, of course, we're going to have, opposition, and there's going to be difficulties to overcome. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean we need to change it. In fact, that means that we are powerful and that they are threatened by us. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, they almost ousted me, but I was able to kind of create situations like, guys, like I'm going to out you out, so let's just part ways. So we did part ways, but they did part with some of the money from the movement and with the email list, and they literally hijacked the email list to start their own movement going forward.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. It was incredible to observe, but I don't know. God told me just like start something else. So I started with movement We All Essential, and that was about bringing businesses together now. So, and we were building that throughout end of 2020, leading in 21, and that's when in Canada we had a big uprising in the fall of 2020 where the businesses were not allowed to serve food for people to eat inside of a restaurant. Like people
You had to eat outside.
Yeah,
I remember that
right?
in New York City.
Right?
In New York, you could only eat outside. Nothing could go. You couldn't eat in a restaurant anywhere.
Yeah.
It's so dirty. The dang rats are rolling by, and you have to eat outside. Trash, you know.
So on that point, this is a great example of subversion of independence of people, right? Like everything they do with all these little stupid rules that they're forcing people to do that goes against any common sense. That's the best example of subversion, that they are social engineering your obedience and compliance. And when they do something like that, where it's like so absurd, it's just nonsense, but you're forced to do it, that's when they basically...
The common sense goes out the door.
It's just, because at that point, they can feed you anything else. Because they fed you this biggest lie, everything else, it doesn't matter. You're going to take it because they already got you, right? So it's like the best example to make is, you're probably familiar, when they get an elephant, a baby elephant, right? They put them on a chain, and the elephant only grows up on this chain, and they have only a little time to get away, space to get away. So when they grow up, the chain goes away, but they never really go away because they get conditioned now.
Right.
So it's the conditioning that people are subjected to on a daily basis. And that's what I always say. I always say that, people think they have free choice and free will. How much of that is really free, your own will, if you've already been conditioned to make these choices, and even the options that you're choosing from are predetermined for you. So how much of free will is really there, right? To a certain extent of free choice is really there. So yeah, this is just something that we've been going to, but going back to the movement, Make Canada Free Again, I tested the environment that were operating throughout 2020. So once Hugs of a Mask movement got hijacked, I started this movement, Wheel Essential. I brought a lady, Samantha Flatman, to help me expand that movement. She was tremendous, helping build the website with Daniel, a friend of ours from Vancouver as well. Anyway, we built like a whole new team to kind of expand now that movement after Hugs of Mask got destroyed there in the process. And we were empowering businesses just to stay open, regardless of government mandates. And we had one uprising in November of 2020, Adamson's Barbecue. We, by the way, have a still court ongoing in that case. Probably one of the only cases that has some legitimacy to kind of showcase all the truth about 5 years of disaster that people were subjected to. So, but we had like a 3-day standoff with this barbecue restaurant. Toronto police brought 200 officers on one barbecue restaurant in Toronto. I was there, my girlfriend at the time, Sarah, was pregnant with our first daughter there. And it was just like some elderly people, some guys, whatever. But we were just like there to eat in a restaurant and just support business that was willing to stay open regardless of what the government told them to do. So we had 3-day standoff. They arrested the owner. They charged him. They charged him for the 200 officers that they brought in. Yeah, they gave him a bill for $200,000 for bringing the officers to force him to shut down his restaurant.
What do you need 200 officers for?
Just to show the people that
have an old man at a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, so the government
waste of resources.
The government does this on purpose to threaten you and showcase to you and make an example out of you, and then in that make sure that nobody else will dare to do anything like that, right? So the reason why this is so significant is because that was kind of one of my ultimate test to see what we're up against and if it's really still salvageable, if Canada still has a opportunity to get out of this mess, or it's like we already passed the point of no return. So that was like my first biggest test in November of 2020, which obviously showcased that we are in a deep situation. Big trouble, yes, a nice word to use. And then I was organizing a business rally in January, so just like 2 months after that. Right. So January of 21, where I had businesses all across Ontario. So I'm in Toronto. I'm bringing businesses from like Niagara Falls area. I'm bringing businesses like from Ottawa area and everything in between. And we were going to have a biggest business rally during the lockdowns. This is like in the middle of the lockdowns. So
everybody was planned to stay open on this particular day.
Yeah. Like we were pushing for the grand reopening of businesses across Canada on that January of 16th of 21. And we were going to do the business rally in downtown Toronto in front of Eaton Centre on Dundas Square. And when we came to enter the square with like maybe 100 people of us to set up the equipment, to wait for the people to arrive, it was surrounded by SWAT team police officers. We were not allowed to enter the square. And we were threatened with arrest if we tried to do that. which we did. And then they arrested a few of us, and they tackled people down, waving Canadian flag in Toronto, broke somebody's fingers, Jim Bubble guy care. So to me, that was kind of the ultimate fall of Canada. And that was a full year before Truckers' Convoy. So a full year before Truckers' Convoy, unfortunately, I realized that we are a fallen nation, because when you cannot wave a Canadian flag in downtown Toronto and you get tackled for it.
Waving a Canadian flag.
I repeat on purpose, waving a Canadian flag in January 16th.
In Canada.
In Toronto, downtown Toronto. Jim Kerr, the bubble bus man that everyone knows across Canada, he's in British Columbia right now. We have an ostrich farm in British Columbia with 400 ostriches that the government wants to destroy right now, because they label them the sick with avian flu or whatever else they try to label them. Oh, Canada is a fallen nation, and people are oblivious to think that we have some type of rights in the country. Nobody has any rights. People have privileges. Until you disobey and you oppose the tyranny, like myself, I have no privileges left. The last time I flew to Toronto was November of 23, and they arrested me in Pearson Airport with 3 arrest warrants.
You literally got off the plane and were arrested.
I got off the plane.
They knew you were coming.
Yeah. I talked to the detective in charge of my case. I was pretty much negotiating my surrender upon my return to the country that I was.
You knew what you were flying into.
I was very aware, yes. Now, I was still naive.
You didn't think it was as bad as...
I was naive to think that we have at least some due process left within legal system in Canada. And this is like where I'm saying, like, this has kind of been my life. The nation of Canada, I call it Chinadistan. The reason why I call it Chinadistan is because it's been captured by China. And you also have, other nations.
Captured by China.
It has definitely been captured by China. It's not a secret. Like you have open conversations of foreign influence into the election at the very minimum for the last 2. And in fact, we had, I think it was former CSIS or RCMP director, or like in charge of he literally said that every single government back to Mulroney, which is like 90s, but I think even earlier, I can't remember, but there was influence of Chinese government. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, like just to showcase how much communism has been injected into Canada, even Trudeau Senior in the 80s, they would be going to Cuba all the time. And I don't know if you guys know, but there's a very, in fact, I believe it to be true for sure, but I'm not going to conduct DNA tests, and I don't think they will, but a lot of conversation out there that Justin Trudeau is actually Fidel Castro's son, a legitimate son of Fidel Castro. And if you go on Google and you just put Justin Trudeau and Fidel Castro pictures, you're going to see collages of Fidel Castro throughout being a baby, teenager, young man, etc. And you're going to see pictures of Justin Trudeau being a child, a young man, teenager, and they look identical pretty much. Yeah, like he looks like nothing like his father, right? Mm-hmm. So, and his mother was definitely a very flirtatious woman, and she was always excited to go to Cuba. Now we know why. Yes. So, and again, this is just like open conversations in Canada, and everyone's just like going about this, right? But I think honestly, since 2020, I'm excited for everything that's unraveling, because it's just I want the truth. And I was listening to multiple different things. One of them from a couple of days ago, which said, when you have this drawing towards truth, that usually means you have high self-esteem. Because if truth triggers you, it means you have low self-esteem. Because if you kind of feel agitated by that, or
you feel agitated by the reality.
Yeah, right. And again, it's just something that you can improve. It's just, we obviously have different things that subject us, but this kind of drawing towards truth, just it's a betterment for everyone. And if you're not willing to face the truth, how are you going to get better, right? So I'm very unapologetic in my way of expressing the truth. A lot of people don't like my style. I don't, it's fine. I think
you don't sugarcoat it.
I don't. And people want to sugarcoat it towards me either.
So you just got to shoot it straight.
Yeah, because I just want to deal with things and move on, right? Like I don't want to be like dwelling and like simmering in that enough. Like people have been doing it for way too long. So everything is unraveling this year. I mean, Candace Owens doing a whole expose on the first man of France. Have you heard about, President of France, Macron?
Okay.
So his wife is not really a wife. It's actually his teacher, who was a man, in school when
no.
Macron was like 15 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Like this is what's unraveling.
real life.
This is when I say we live in the clown world, we absolutely live in the clown
Holy
world.
chips.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they now openly saying that, you know, the pyramids are not really the pyramids. They have like endless tubes going underneath there, right? Like, it's just, you know, we have all this free energy around us. Like, this is the best time to be alive because everything just unraveling right now. And we get to kind of shape, because you have the dark side that just kind of try to push the narrative that they're trying to push, which is ultimately death cult. That's why it's good what you do and what I do, and we need to have more families, you know, go be fruitful and multiply, because that's what God told us to do.
Yes.
And that's
live in the light, not in the darkness.
Right, exactly. It's all about expansion and abundance, and just like living in the world of God, of just like, go and be fruitful, multiply, fruitful, like create businesses and be prosperous and help others, right? And be kind to people. But kind doesn't mean nice. You know, people confuse a lot of times. They think Jesus is nice. No, Jesus is kind. But when you need to be righteous, that's what you need to be. You need to be discernment. You need to know what's good and bad, because the scripture teaches us that you should love what Heavenly Father loves, and you should hate what Heavenly Father hates, right? And that's black and white. There's no like a medium in there.
No gray area.
No, because that's where when you go into the middle ground, you kind of get caught up in the narrative, and then you lose your way. So it's good to kind of get back on track and just live a simple life, connect to nature, you know, eat biblical food, I call it, you know, the way God created before man messed with it, with all the factory farming. Like I said, the Food Inc. movie is a really good one.
I haven't seen it, so I definitely need
I
to
recommend
watch
it. It's old
on
one.
Netflix?
Yeah,
I'm
YouTube,
sure.
you can find it on YouTube, because
Okay.
it's 2007. It's been around
I'll
forever.
have to find it.
Yeah, so I think it's like truly the most extraordinary time to be alive. We get to shape the future that we get to live in. As the darkness is trying to kind of cover us, you know, we just have to do our part and you know, be good to others, be good to ourselves, be good to people. And at the same time, I think it's important to be unapologetic of taking that strong stand of protection. And that's why I actually wear this t-shirt I was saying earlier. Like, I was thinking which t-shirt I would want to wear for this podcast, and I appreciate the invitation again earlier. Thank you. Again, and this is something that I've been like thinking I want to go on a podcast. And I'm going to do a series of them, but I don't think there's a better one for me to start with than with you, because like you're a mom of 5 kids, and I'm all about big families and just having children and living this healthy life, and just kind of amplifying that and being an example that we need to have this.
Yes.
And if we just focus on this, everything will be taken care of. Because if you just focus on families, which is supposed to be the unit of community, right? And then you build communities out of strong families, and out of strong communities that have strong families, well, you have strong country.
Stronger influence.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then that's how it grows, right? But it starts with you first, and then starts with your family, and its fundamental principles of health and freedom and wealth. Because if you don't have wealth, you're going to be subjected to limitations. But ultimately, your health is your biggest wealth, is your number one, right? Because if you don't have health, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I think on Tucker Carlson, somebody was saying that one of his guests was saying that you know, you can have all the riches in the world, but when you don't have health, you can have many different concerns or wishes, but when you don't have health, that you have only one wish, is to be healthy, right? I think that something like that was shared there, and I believe to that, and I learned that early on. That's why my personal life I build around health. I prioritize my environment to the max. I prioritize my daily activity to the max to be as healthy as possible. Now, do I make sometimes, you know, sacrifices or, you know, concessions? Sure. But it's still underlying focus on me on a daily basis. That's why I live in Miami, because if I'm going to live in USA specifically, I don't think there's a healthier place to be than in Miami, in South Beach, where I live, because I get to be on the beach every day.
Be on the beach,
right?
Fresh air, the sun, outside in nature, not stuck in a concrete jungle or inside. Right? And that's, you know, one of the reasons why we started to go to the beach more is because we're like, wow, we live in such a beautiful place, and we take it for granted, 100%. And you don't realize what's in your backyard.
Literally.
So just literally in your backyard, right? So it's like we wanted to, you know, the kids, they're inside, go to school, then they're inside a gym, training, whatever. And it was like,
get them out.
We've got to get them out, get them in this, like take advantage of what's in our backyard.
What's available for sure. No, you guys are blessed.
Readily available.
Absolutely blessed. And that's why I'm glad to be here, because again, I think this is the capital of health and freedom for the whole North America. So like between Canada and United States, I lived a little bit in Mexico as well for almost 2 years in Playa del Carmen, but the infrastructure obviously the best in Miami in terms of what's available.
I definitely feel like in Miami we have a huge population of health-minded individuals, right? If you go outside of Miami, other parts of Florida, people are sick. But in Miami, we do have an enormous pocket of people that are actually, you know, they want to have conscious of their health, want to improve their quality of life, and it's a priority.
And shows outside. It shows in people being healthy and fit looking, but it also shows people running and exercising and cycling and you know, everyone's doing something, right? And that's so important, because your environment will ultimately dictate who you are, because it just sets a bar, it sets a standard. And then at the same time too, it elevates you to kind of like, well, I want to be like those people.
Yeah, I need to get my butt in gear, because...
And then you stand out. You will, like, if somebody is really fat and overweight in Miami, you stand out. And people don't want to stand out like that. Like you want to stand out like when you like
when you look
healthy,
good,
right?
and you
exactly.
not because you.
And even that, think about, like, I mean, I'm glad there's finally a pushback, but look at all the acceptance of body image positivity and all this nonsense, because it is nonsense. I mean, everyone has different journeys, and I respect everybody. I've been a health coach for over 20 years, and I work mostly with women, some guys too, but you know, obviously when you're a guy, women want to work with you.
Don't prioritize their health
until
they have to.
100%.
Until they have to. They're like, they're the most difficult patients.
Yeah.
They have been stuck in their ways.
Yeah, you have experience, right? So
they're stuck in their ways. You have to hold their hand a little bit more and more encouragement. But yeah, men are definitely more difficult patients.
For sure. So, but what I was saying with body image, etc., you know, working with women especially, I understand that struggle, but I also want for them to be healthy, right? And I want to empower them and encourage them to be better. Like, and they're not competing with anyone else except themselves.
You versus you. That's what
that's
I say.
That's it, right? But are you focusing on getting better every single day? And if not, then what are you doing with your life?
Right.
You know, like that's really black and white. And
better every day, and it can be small little changes.
I don't care if it's like a 0.000 point whatever percent, right? But are you moving in that? Are you crawling to that
going
direction?
In the right direction, right? That's what matters.
It is,
it's the consistency of those small little changes. You don't have to do everything at once. Don't overwhelm yourself and psych yourself out, and then be disappointed whenever you're trying to, you know, throw the kitchen sink at somebody and do all the things.
Well, yeah, and then
focus on the things that actionable items you can start to implement and change.
And I find that we just sometimes we want to like an easy way out, and the cop out is like, oh well, you know, maybe this is why I shouldn't be doing this. No, do it whatever you can. Besides the Bible, the other book that was very significant for me in terms of understanding this life and how to the best navigate it is the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I highly recommend it. It's a small book on audio. The 4 Agreements.
Okay, 4
agreements. The 4 Agreements. So the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. So impeccato in Latin means without a sin. So that means you should speak without a sin, which means you should never say anything bad about yourself and also about other people. It's extremely powerful. That's why it's the first agreement.
Okay.
The first agreement is to speak without a sin, and they give you the whole description in the book about that in detail. So
instead of saying like, "Oh, I'm terrible at public speaking,"
I'm tired today.
I'm tired.
Yeah. I have no energy.
I don't
today.
have energy. Yes. Okay.
I just need rest.
Change it.
I just need rest. I just need rest. You know, I need sleep.
Mindset.
Yeah. Right. So the first, and then gossip is a big part of the agreement, because gossip is how you spread
false
the
news,
sin,
fake news.
Well, multiple different things, right? And it's just speaking against yourself. So you shouldn't be doing that. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. Don't take anything personally. I know.
People are so sensitive, though.
Oh,
People are so sensitive.
Well, considering you have a guy who's been criminally charged for criminal harassment for making Facebook posts about his son abduction by the government because he was opposing the COVID measures.
What?
I repeat, I was charged. The reason why I was arrested in Pearson Airport is because I was making Facebook posts about my son being kept away from me by his mother and her husband now with the help of the Canadian government, because the only reason why I was not allowed to have my son was because I was opposing the lockdowns in 2020.
That was what they used against you.
Yes, yeah, because the judge literally said that unless you're willing to comply with mandates, to wear the mask, to isolate, to test yourself, whatever, you cannot be with your child. as we were building this network of chapters of opposing the government measures, and we had so the other thing too, what we would do for the 2020 is in some parts of those cities, if the families were comfortable, they would do a little rally as well. So it wasn't just in the park coming together. Now it would be like a mini rally opposing the government's measures, right? So.
But it's not like these were destructive rallies. You
No,
weren't bashing windows, stealing
of
things
course
in
not.
New York City.
We
Like
were just
what's going
showing that
on.
we are here. What I was saying is that it was people coming together, right? So people would recognize each other in the streets.
Peaceful rallies.
Yes, yeah. Just coming together, just hugging each other, all in 2020. So, yeah. So the point is, not taking anything personal, right? So not taking anything personally, making Facebook posts and being arrested, right, for Facebook posts, and denied bail and prosecuted, the whole thing.
Gotta love Facebook.
Yeah, it's crazy. The third agreement is don't make assumptions.
That is so important. Don't
Vital.
just assume.
No.
Don't
You
make
have to ask
assumptions.
questions.
You have to ask questions. I feel like I've gotten myself in my own trouble of assuming
We all do.
things.
It's natural.
And it's not.
Because
like,
we don't want to be confrontational a lot of times, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to be uncomfortable. And that's kind of the thing too. Like
Avoiding conflict.
We have a society that conditions us to seek comfort in every area of our life. And as a result, we become weak and kind of stupid and kind of naive and just like, it doesn't help us
Gullible.
to expand ourselves. It doesn't help us to improve ourselves. So, like not making any assumptions is the third agreement. And the fourth agreement is to do your best.
Do your best.
Do your best.
Give me your best.
And the conversation of doing the best, the reason why I even brought this up is because we're talking about like your best is different every day. So you should be compassionate to yourself first, because today you might be able to go at 100, and that is like 100, and tomorrow you maybe go at the 20, but that's your 100 for that day.
Right.
And that's kind of what it means to do your best.
Giving yourself that grace.
Yes, give yourself your grace. Still like go and do whatever you can and just be honest with yourself. Whenever I was coaching my clients on a regular basis, I still do some, but not as much as I used to do back in the day. I would always say, just be honest with yourself. Like you can BS me all you want, but just be honest with yourself. Like at the end of the day, your actions will show me what you truly value the most. Like it's
The results speak for themselves.
yeah, the Jim Rohn taught us all, you can either have excuses or results, right? The outcome will show at the end, like what really drives you and what really stops you, right? And it's important for you to figure out a way. The other good saying from Jim Rohn is, you don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills.
Wish for more skills.
Like if you're only going to wish for something, why would you want to wish for less problems? Because that's not really...
You're always going to have problems,
Yes.
but you need the skill set
Yes.
to be able to overcome those problems.
And then become better in the process,
become better,
right?
yeah.
Get an insight, learn something, be able to navigate things. And that's where I believe, like, my life, as we started this podcast, like 10 years ago, I made this post with this picture. And then like, it's incredible for me to list everything that I was able to accomplish, because I really took it to heart that I don't want to live my life every single day the same way and call it a life of 75 years, whatever. I want to live to the fullest, and I want to go all in. And, it might be different time, but because I'm doing my best, because I have those agreements to kind of navigate me, be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and do your best. And that's kind of been my force,
pillars
my
to
pillars to
live by
build
and
everything. Yeah. And it's been incredible to just kind of walk in faith and surrender to the experience and not label things. I find that's also a challenge that we face, besides being conditioned to seek comfort, where we should do the opposite. We should seek discomfort, which I do on a daily basis.
I feel like I actually I do like accountability calls with my patients and stuff that want to join in. And one of the things that I've touched on before is like putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations so you can grow from those uncomfortable situations. That's the only way.
Think about a seed. The seed when you put in the ground, right? How hard does it have to work to get through?
That's
right?
a lot of work.
But
years,
then, right? Sometimes.
Years of work.
Again, there's a old saying about the old Chinese bamboo tree, right? I think they have to plant the seed and like care for it for like 5-6 years
before you get a
before it even just
sprout
goes
out of the ground,
right? And then within 6 months, it grows like whatever 10 feet tall or whatever. And so the question is, did it take 6 months to grow, or did it take 5.5 years to grow? Right? Well, the answer is the whole time. But that's how life is. I think again we got conditioned into this instant gratification mentality and things being
instant
easy.
gratification. Your phone, you can order
Right?
groceries.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
be on
like
the
that.
social media, like that
Get a
instant
fix,
gratification
get a
because of your
fix.
likes and your comments, shares, whatever.
Anything
and
and
so many
everything.
people are just so caught up in this instant. They want everything now.
Yeah. Some people call it cocaine mentality. Some people call it instant gratification. Whoever have different vices we can relate to, but the outcome is the same. It's just like you want it now. You want it yesterday, but forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And then people wonder, why do we need to have mindfulness classes?
Practice
Reason why is
mindfulness.
because we don't do life how we used to, where you didn't have all this technology to keep you occupied. You actually would be on a bus and kind of watching condensation going down the thing, right?
People watching, talking,
and just engaging with others, just looking at everybody.
present or being still, like just being still and not having to have that stimulation constantly from scrolling.
Well, and then the other sinister way to look at it, and again, this is a big rabbit hole, but if you do believe that there's obviously we are in a spiritual war, we all are, right? And there's these forces that are trying to corrupt us in any way they can. And the only way they're able to corrupt us is when they disconnect us from the source, from our God. And then the way they do it is by these devices, because the reason why we call it a cell, because you are in a cell. Because when you hear, you can't be in here. Like you cannot be in the God's world when you're in the machine world.
Right.
And this is the purpose of that. And if they condition you from young age with all the children, iPads, whatever now, right? To be in the machine world, you don't even know anything else. And if you're not connected to your source, to God, you get lost. And that's where you get manipulated into all the transgender.
You get stuck on the algorithm of whatever it is that they want to feed you.
Well, that too.
And that's just constantly being played in your face. And this is, again, with that conditioning of the mentality, because this is what's being played and over again to our kids who are on social media at, 6th grade or whatever it is. It's insane.
It's really sinister what they're doing, for sure. The good movie to watch to kind of understand what's really been happening to society for the last long time, but especially last 50 years, is the Truman Show. It's the movie with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
The Truman Show is from
I love Jim
98.
Carrey.
Yeah. Another Canadian too, by the way, right?
Another Canadian.
So, who, by the way, on a condensation of how much power do we have? I'm sure you're familiar with the story where Jim Carrey wrote a check to himself for $10 million. Do you know about that story? Yeah. Like you can again Google that, and you'll see the video of him doing an interview. I can't remember, was it with Oprah he was saying the story to everyone, but he literally wrote a check to himself for $10 million, and he put in his wallet, and he was carrying that check with him forever and ever. And then I think it was Ace Ventura. It was one of his first movies that just blew up.
Ace Ventura is a classic.
The paycheck for that movie was $10 million.
Wow.
Like we had that much.
He just put it into.
You have to.
He just.
You have to. Like when I went in exile to Mexico in June of 23, I started going to the rallies on May 2nd of 2020. So we are May 6th today, right? So literally 4 years ago was my 5th
May
year
6th
anniversary.
is today.
Right?
My brother's birthday. I've got to text him.
All right.
Thanks.
What's his name?
His name's Frank Jr.
Frankie, happy birthday. From Coach Vlad, aka Milkman.
Yes.
So May 2nd, I go to my very first protest. And by the way, I didn't mention this. I never went to any protest in my life up to that point. That was like literally my first time going to a
Brand
protest,
new.
being like an activist, right? Like I would be a health coach, we would like be part of different events. I would work in hospitality, like catering events. Like, I was part of events, but myself as a like activist, like, no, I just
This was the first one.
Was the absolutely first. I bought this white kind of boards from Dollarama with marker. I made these signs, no new normal, real data versus fake model, because like I said, the whole paradigm was based on modeling. That's why I was losing my mind. How everyone can just comply with nonsense where it's not even real. It's speculation. People will literally phone the government based on made up nonsense, paid by the guy that told everyone that he wants to destroy them. Like, I'm like, what are we doing here?
Clowns.
So clowns, absolutely. Right, thank you. So I made the signs. Our kids deserve normal life, real data versus folk model, like a bunch of other signs. And I go to this first rally. I didn't even have a megaphone. I'm like, later I should have, but and I had like the second rally I went, I already had my own megaphone.
You were ready.
Like, we would be making this happen. But I brought the signs. Some people were speaking, etc. So and then I started Hugs of Masks. I had the biggest, actually the anniversary is coming up. I had the biggest birthday party for Canada because birthday parties were not allowed.
You couldn't have a birthday party.
Of course not.
Because it was a gathering.
It was locked down, right? You cannot come together with people. No funerals, no birthdays,
That's
no
right.
graduations,
That's
nothing.
right. That's
The
right.
life, you were not allowed to have a life. You are not allowed to have life. And everyone just complied. I was losing my
There
mind.
was just so much fear.
But people were just like, they was like,
And
okay.
just agreeing to it.
But this
Not
is what I'm
asking
saying.
questions.
The people condition has been for so long. Like, if you remember back in the day, people didn't have to wear helmets. People didn't have to wear seatbelts. And you can have a whole conversation like how benefit or not. But the point is that you, as an adult, should have a choice what to do, right? You can be educated, right? But like at which point the government has the power to tell you what to do with your life, right? And they do that submersion very slowly over time because you don't even recognize it. The concept is called boiling.
Grooming?
Well, that too. But it's called boiling a live frog because you can have a cold pot of water, and if you put a live frog in it and you just increase slowly over time, it will never jump out. You will cook the frog to death because you will increase in the heat very slowly over a period of time. It will not recognize that you're literally cooking it to death. It will stay in the pot. And so that's one concept that why people are so subjected to
Boiling
the propaganda.
frog to death.
Yes.
Now I'm getting what you're saying.
Right? Like
Yeah.
you have a...
Instead of them just jumping out
yeah.
because they totally can.
They can.
But
Because
the
you
gradual, over
you're
time,
cooking them.
they're not,
They're not
catching
recognized.
on
They're not.
that I need to get out of this dang
That's
hot
why people say, somebody's been cooked, right? You know how it's right now, it's like a slang.
It
Somebody's
is.
been cooked.
So now I'm catching on.
That's it. And I don't know if people kind of figure out, but that's how I would connect those dots, right? And then another concept of this kind of conformity and how easily it is to condition people to conformity is the concept of crabs in the bucket. And if you don't know crabs in the bucket, is that even if a crab is trying to get out of the bucket, other crabs will drag him down. It's just what happens. So if somebody's trying to get out of this enslavement that everyone's subjected to, other people will bring them down. Because in doing so, you're showcasing and putting a spotlight on somebody else that they might have to do something, and people don't want to change. I think it's Dr. Nido Cobain, I think the last name is, he said the saying, also like one of the older motivational speakers, he had the saying that the only person that welcomes change, and that you will be familiar with that, is a baby in a dirty diaper. That is the only person that welcomes change, is a baby in a dirty diaper.
Yep.
Nobody else
wants
to
to
change.
sit in, the baby doesn't want to sit in its poop.
Right? So,
But everybody else will.
right? So, and that's it. Think about this. Like another concept, like it's like the dog on a nail. Like the dog will be sitting on a nail without moving just because it's not that bad. So we're using all this kind of things that part of our human existence, nature that we subjected to, and they're using that against us to condition us to behavior that lead us to our own demise, right? So I'm able to recognize all of that, from my own experiences, which is significant, and obviously from all the learning that I'm doing to this day. Like even on the way here, I'm listening to the news podcast, how to exit matrix biblically. Like there's things out there now, and this is a little from 2 days ago. Like that's why I'm so excited, and I'm just like constantly in this learning mode, and I'm always listening, and I'm listening to things at like time and a half speed, because I have to get through it faster.
I love that. I do that too because I'm
You
like,
have to.
I need this. I only have so much time.
There's no time. Like there's so much content now.
So much content,
and I'm
which
just
is
such
a beautiful thing.
It's a fantastic.
So it's good and bad, right?
I mean, yeah, it's just you have to figure out how you can do it, but just do your best. Remember the four
Do your
agreements.
best.
Do your best, and
There
just
you
be compassionate, gentle.
Okay, I need you to go back to your timeline
Tell
here.
me. Oh yes,
So,
I do that.
okay, so rally, you got to get me to Mexico.
Yes, right. So let's just do that before I sidetrack again. So May 2nd, my first rally. May 26th, starting Hugs Over Masks. October 30th of 2020, that's when I started We Are All Essential. October 31st, We Are All Essential, which was the Business Empowerment Network.
Yes.
We were literally organizing businesses across Canada who will not comply with the government mandates
They were
to
staying
state
open.
laws. So they would actually open the businesses. And we organized like 200 businesses across Canada. I was giving interviews to all the publications, all the radio stations, like it was going crazy. So the government got so threatened, they literally brought like police army on us in downtown Toronto, and like broke down the rally, arrested people. I literally had to run away from them not to get arrested. I went back home. I boarded my door just in case they would come and
They
get me.
still
in the middle
came
of
and
the night.
got you.
Well, not
At a
that
later time.
No,
They
later,
used it
yes.
against you.
But I knew that they would go to this extent. So what I was saying earlier is like, and I'm not going to digress too much, but that's kind of been my life, testing my environment and to see what can I get away with towards what I'm going towards, right? So like it's like, imagine like you walking on ice and you're like tippy-topping and you're just trying to figure out like, do I go here or do I go there, right? So I do that with everything around me. And that was the point, that I wanted to see if we push them with our disobedience, at which point they're going to use force on us. Because at the end of the day, the government has monopoly on violence. The reason why it's difficult for people to become free when the tyrannical government becomes tyrannical, like fully, because they have monopoly on violence. They can just like go and do whatever they want to you because they have that.
Right.
You know? That's why they want to take away the guns from people, because then you don't have an ability to defend yourself. You know, like the book is always the same. Like the textbook, in the steps of subversion and steps of tyranny are always the same. Take away the guns, censorship of media and spread of information. And then you go after people's suppression. You're taking out their wealth by suppressing the businesses that they have. They did this in Soviet Russia, in Royal Russia, when they make it Soviet. They went after wealthy farmers in 1917 in Russia, and basically took away the farms from people that were feeding the country. And then there was famine and people died, millions of people. So I knew that's why the government was closing the businesses, because they wanted to destroy independent class in Canada and obviously other countries, but we're talking about Canada, is because once people are economically suppressed and stressed, they can be manipulated and controlled.
Right. What else are you going to do if you have no money to
do anything,
function?
right? You have to rely on the government, and that's what the government wants. Government wants people to rely onto them because then they can control.
They'll be submissive to
Exactly, right?
what they want.
So January 21, this rally happens that's broken down by the government. I'm like, okay, we are definitely up for a bumpy ride. And that's when, within 2 months after that, 3 months after that, I started Make Canada Free Again movement. I launched it in Vancouver, that I travel back to now that I moved to have our daughter born in Vancouver, because I was thinking that's going to be a better place than Toronto. And it ended up to be a better place. So my first daughter was born in Vancouver in St. Paul's Hospital in downtown Vancouver. They were trying to do vitamin K shot. They were trying to smudge the eyes,
Hep
doing
B,
everything else.
erythromycin
I was able to prevent all of that, which was incredible.
In Canada, you were able to prevent that in Canada?
Yes.
Where y'all have free healthcare.
Yeah.
And they let you make that decision? That's impressive.
Well, it was a battle, but because I was prepared and I was stern and calm.
You were prepared. There you go.
Very important. And we actually have this nurse who was also one of the freedom people, even in Trucker Convoy. She's holding this conference around regained birth and educating mothers how to have natural birth at home.
That's amazing. I love that.
I'll connect you guys. But she's putting a training for men at the same time. And we had a freedom.
Super important.
So I thank her for doing that, because this is so important to bring men back into the families, because they've been purposely separated. The reason why we do hospital births is to separate men from this experience. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we're doing this is that's so sinister, because we're already disconnecting of father connections to his children. Because that's unfortunately the agenda of the government is to replace the fathers with daddy government. And that's why you see this whole thing happening now, right? So the timeline, I'm launching this Make Canada Free Again in Vancouver. I'm fighting in a position of this will be very controversial for your podcast. I'm fighting this covert feminists within right-wing movement, because you have someone that's trying to have a spotlight instead of allowing men to step up to protect everybody. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I wear this shirt, because it has a bear. And I was pushing Papa Bear initiative even before I went to the first rally. But I started Hugs of Musk, etc. Papa Bear initiative, right? Mm-hmm. Because, and unfortunately, and people kind of got duped into that, we had actually a movement that started that's called Mama Bear Initiative, and everyone was supporting that. And of course, Mama Bear is very, dearing, and it's like, empowering and all this stuff. But that's not the purpose of the mother. The purpose of the mother is to nurture. The purpose of the father is to protect, right?
There you go.
And you might not like it, you might disagree with it, it doesn't matter. It's just how nature is, right? Now, when the father is not there, the mother has to protect, because father is not there.
Right.
And this is, if you really understand the sinistry of how sinister this plan is women are being forced into the position that is against their own nature. Because when you have to protect...
It's not natural.
It's not. Like, if you have to protect, you have to step into your masculine. But you're a woman. You're supposed to be in your feminine. Now, do you have to be in the masculine occasionally? Yes, but you're not supposed to be there.
Not living in that
exactly,
zone.
right? Like majority of
Or
your
state,
time
I should
should be
say.
part of your nature, right? Same thing with the man. Man has to be in his masculine. Occasionally, he can be in his feminine. Men even have both chromosomes for a reason. Women don't even have Y chromosome. Think about this, right? It's the man who determines the sex of the baby. You know, the children come from the man first because it's the seed that's planted into the woman, right? So I'm pushing this narrative out there.
The men are dictating.
Huh?
The men are dictating the sex of the baby.
That's it.
That's it.
Right? And so who has the ultimate authority of the child? Is it the mother or the father? Right? It's a very controversial conversation.
Head of the household. What does my husband always say? He says he's the king of the jungle. He's the
He
king
is,
of the
100%,
jungle.
right? But and you want as a mother and a wife, you want to elevate that because the bigger the king,
he's the king. I'm the queen.
Yes, the bigger
That's
the king,
what it is.
The bigger the king, the bigger the kingdom, the bigger the queen. But once you start diminishing the king, you destroy the kingdom.
You have a lot of issues, right? And you see that in marriages all the time. If the wife is the dominant in the household, your marriage struggles.
Well, it will not be a marriage that somebody else would want to live in, because I have this conversation on my Facebook all the time with women that try to explain to me is that I'm the problem, that I'm trying to...
So your Facebook has a lot going on.
Oh, it's like, it's bonkers. It's bananas.
Okay.
Yeah. I literally put a message, a post saying that women empowerment is rebranded feminism.
Women empowerment is rebranded feminism.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Like, you like it or not, right? It's just, it is what it is. And if you just put a hashtag of women empowerment, there's going to be like a millions hashtag. And for men empowerment, almost nothing. Why? Like all this
because men have been empowered.
Well, have they? Have they been empowered? In the last 50 years, there's real war on men, right? Well, like, men don't even want to
diminishing the power of men.
So
it's becoming more acceptable.
So my perspective on that whole situation, and I'll go back to the timeline.
We digressed again. Okay.
Right? Is again, I'm all about restoring the order that's natural, that's going to be healthy.
Yes.
If I want to make America healthy again, right? A natural order in the family has to be restored. The father, the man has to be in charge of the family, right? It's not equal partnership. It's not like you cannot have two captains.
Can't have two captains. You can't have too many chefs in the kitchen. However you want to say it. Exactly. It just doesn't work.
It does not. It does not. And so what I was going to say is the women in my comments when making a comment that it's working in their marriage, their husband is probably miserable, and he's just not willing to admit that.
He doesn't want to deal with the drama.
No, you don't.
He doesn't want to face it.
No, because
he doesn't want to deal with it. He'd rather just zip it, lock it, put it in his pocket.
Yeah, ramification is going to be tremendous. Like, you will lose everything.
Create more strife within the household.
Yeah, you will lose everything. You will lose your life. You will lose your house. You will lose your children. Like example right here sitting. I haven't seen all my 3 children in a long time.
And that makes me so sad for you. And it makes me so sad for them.
Then that's the point. Like, I'm suffering for sure, but my children, it's an abuse. It's child abuse when you're alienating child from the other parent, whichever way. And it happens on both sexes, but it happens a lot more with men than women. But I want to address, like, it happens on both sides.
It does. But more so in men.
More
just
so,
like you
because
said.
the system is designed to
protect the women.
To incentivize the women to do it.
Mom's going to win unless you have some very strong...
It's basically who has the money. At the end of the day, who has the money will get the judgment they want.
Money's going to talk.
And again, I can say that because my mom was a judge in Soviet Union. Like, I was raised by a judge in Soviet Union.
Of course you were.
Right? That's why the righteousness with me is just like, I can't help it. I can't, right? So and again, a conversation of powerful women, right? Mm-hmm. Like, my mother told my father, if he's going to leave, you're not allowed to come back. And he didn't. He listened to her. I wish he didn't, right? But that's just my part of my genesis, right? Mm-hmm. So then I made a testimony to myself. I proclaimed that if I ever would be in a situation when I'm separated from my children, and I would never stop fighting for them. And I'm not. I have to be strategic how I go about it because I can go back to Canada to do it. But going back to the timeline, I launched this movement, and then I was censored in Vancouver because it was run by women that didn't want to have me on stage because...
This is the Papa Bear movement.
So this is... I wanted to make Canada free again. I didn't start the Papa Bear movement, but I understood that you need to have men at the front line. Mm-hmm. But if the women taking the spot at the front line, men is not even going to show up. And then women would come to me at the rallies asking me, where are all the men? I'm like, well, they're not. And now I understand why. It's because there was no place for them to come. The women are already there. So what do they need to do? And if the children can be so easily taken away from men, what's the point for them even showing up to defend the children that can be taken away from them so easily? That's why I try to explain to the people that attack me for stand for father's rights and children's rights to have a father, is that that's the ultimate point how you can turn this whole mess around. They're just bringing fathers back into the family. So in spring of 21, I launched Make Canada Free again. You know, we built it a little bit along the way. I'm struggling not seeing my son throughout this whole time. Building movements across the nation. And then in 22, I finally able to, and at the end of 22, almost 2 years later, I'm able to regain a little bit of access to my son and see him. In between, I'm getting arrested and everything in Toronto because I talk on Facebook about this. Mm-hmm. So they arrest me in Toronto for criminal harassment. They charge me. They give me bail conditions. Not to talk on Facebook about it, obviously. And I'm able to see my son for like 3-4 months, I guess, in total. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as they see that I have influence over my child, they escalated the situation where they created a conflict where I was not able to see my son. And then they started involving the police again because I had bail conditions that did not allow me to be within 500 meters of the mother of my son and her husband. Mm-hmm. When I came to the graduation park event for my son's school, on my court-appointed time, they showed up on purpose to put me in the breach of my own conditions.
So and shady.
They literally said on the phone to the nanny who was there, like, we come in and you're going to be arrested. And I'm like, why? I'm here. Like, I have a court order. This is my court-appointed time. I can be with my son. Like, don't come, guys. You don't need to aggravate this whole situation. Mm-hmm. So this is all on Facebook, too, by the way. I'm streaming the whole thing for my protection and for the record, too, right? And they're saying, like, oh, you're streaming it on Facebook. This is also against your bail conditions, so you're not allowed to do this.
You're streaming it on Facebook, and what, you need to have consent to actually have the video footage or to have the streaming?
No, it's just because it's part of my bail conditions. I'm not allowed to stream,
real life.
What's going on?
What's really happening?
What's going on with these people, right?
Okay.
So, like, I can do anything else, but not in this case situation. And I'm like, don't come. So that was June of 23. So we basically, end of 22, I was able to see my son a little bit in 23. And then things escalated in summer of 23. And that's literally where I talked to God. That happened on Wednesday. I didn't go back home. I stayed downtown Toronto in a couple of people's houses. And then I talked to God. It's like, if they don't come and arrest me on the weekend, first Monday morning, I'm getting on a plane and going to Mexico. And I did a mini stay at the flea market, kind of promoting freedom and everything else like I was doing before leaving to Mexico. And I met this man that was praying over his food in front of my booth that I had set up for like Hugs of a Mask and Will Essential Movement. And then I talked to him, and he was actually going to Mexico or coming from Mexico back and forward. And we had a conversation with him where he told me, is like, you're always going to be presented to two paths. And one path will be like more pleasant to maybe go into, and then the other path might look dark, but the path that might be dark is the one where you're going to gain the most. Like, he told me all of this. I don't want to get emotional, but it's just like, it was so, like, I know it was planted there on purpose for me to get that message that don't worry, just go where you might be struggling, but just have faith that everything's going to work out. Mm-hmm. And literally, they did not come arrest me that weekend. Monday morning, I was on a plane. I'm taking off from Toronto. I have my phone radio listening, the songs playing, coming home. I'm like, screenshot. And I land in Mexico on Monday afternoon. Tuesday night at 11:30, police came to the house to arrest me. And I was not there.
Thank goodness.
Right?
Wow.
So then I stayed in Mexico.
Talk about God's timing.
Divine, protected, like without a doubt. Mm-hmm. So this is June of 23. I'm in Mexico. I come with 2 suitcases. I have suitcases of his hats. I literally brought like 80 hats, Make Canada Free again, and another suitcase with a little bit of my clothing. But that's how like committed I am to this. I'm fleeing Canada, right? Not to be arrested.
Bringing your Make Canada Free again
Bringing
hats.
Make Canada Free again hats to Mexico.
Screw whatever you actually need to survive and live
whatever.
in Mexico.
Yeah, I bring 2
out.
suitcases. One some clothing and the other one these hats.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Right? Committed. I'll tell you the thing about committed, so you're gonna like this. So this is June 23. I'm manifesting. I'm praying to God that I want to have a 2-bedroom penthouse that I want to live in with Sarah and my 2 daughters. My daughter was born in Mexico. My second daughter, I skipped that part.
Really? That's
So
cool.
yeah, we went there on purpose because, let me digress.
Wait a minute.
Tell me.
You didn't go to Mexico by yourself.
I went, so I skipped the part, sorry. We'll have to maybe cut this up to make it
Okay.
streamlined. Let me say it again. So I have my son, access regained end of 22. A little bit of time with him in... And
23.
This is 23, and at that time, Sarah is pregnant with our second daughter, and we still don't know where we're going to give birth. Because Ava was born in Vancouver, we had a doula, but we ended up going to the hospital because Sarah was in labor for like 24 hours, 26 hours. But everything worked out well in the hospital with no complications. It just she needed a little bit of the... she couldn't stop throwing up, so she needed a little bit just to help ease up with that stuff.
Yep.
And then she was pregnant with Rosa, and with Rosa, we were thinking we might go to Vancouver to use the same team that we used. We might use somebody in Toronto, or we can maybe go to Mexico in a birthing center and do the birth there. And I wanted to stay in Canada, and Sarah wanted to go to Mexico. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's go to Mexico. We can give birth, we can get permanent residency, so at least have it as a backup. But at that point, so that was spring of 23. So spring of 23, we deciding we're finally going to go to Mexico to give birth to Rosa, our second daughter, and then get the permanent residency and then come back because I have to still fighting for the custody of my son.
Right.
I skipped that part. So that's when we give birth, we get permanent residency, we fly back to Toronto. I start seeing my son for like 3 more weeks. And that's when things escalate.
That's when things escalate, and that's when you were like, okay, I need to leave. If I'm not arrested by Monday, I'm leaving to Mexico.
Yeah, and I have a permanent residency to Mexico at that point, so I know I'm not going to have any issues going to Mexico. That's why I forgot to mention. So at that point, I already had permanent residency card. I'm like, the only place I can go, because I don't want to go to the States because I didn't want to like be arrested and deported or whatever, right? So I'm like, let me just go to Mexico and start building a life there. So that's how I end up going to Mexico by myself, and the plan was for me to establish a base. So then Sarah with... our 2 daughters could come and then we start building life, and then I'm going to be working on getting my son back at that point too. So that was the plan. We've made kind of the friggin' hats just to build the freedom community in Mexico and then figuring out how can I get my son, but I just didn't want to be in jail wasting life. Like it just was not the point.
Right.
And yeah, while I'm there, I'm like creating these opportunities. Like I want to have 2-bedroom apartment for us to live in with ocean view, with terrace partially covered and elevator and parking and I literally created that apartment with ocean view, 5 minutes to the beach, like everything, including to the price. Like I wanted to pay 16,000 pesos for it, and the guy listed this apartment for 17, and I negotiated to 16. And then at the same time, I was thinking I want to have a building that I want to open a Freedom Hostel out of, and I literally leased 3-story building, a street over from this 2-bedroom apartment that I already leased, for 8 years with like almost 20 units. And I'm all doing this with like almost no money, borrowing money from people, like making this project work, etc. We've made kind of the friggin' hats, right? in Mexico, in exile, Mexico. Right? Just like creating, when I say like you can create anything and everything if you just go at it. And just try to figure out as you go along. Like I learned this from everyone that I listened to, from grandfather.
You might not have all the answers. You might not know how to do everything. You never will. You're right.
Reality check.
But you just got to go for it.
Look at all these people. And you got to make
it happen.
Look at all the people that did so many different things because they did things. You have to, like I learned this from Gary Vee, from Grant Cardone, from Tony Robbins, from Jim Rohn originally, right? From Les Brown. Like Les Brown, he lives in Miami. I want to do an event with Les Brown, actually. Okay. Like that's my goal, to do an event with Les Brown. I have a friend that reached out to him. I'm waiting to hear. I have a picture with Les. I got to send him that. But my favorite speech from Les Brown, it says, "It's not over until I win." It's about 20 minutes. I highly recommend. I at one point I learned it by heart because I would listen to it so many different times. I literally in my headphones like nonstop. As I would travel across Toronto with like suitcases of my Herbalife shakes to the market where I was getting clients on by measuring them. I had this scale, Omron machine. I would measure the fat loss, the visceral fat, the body age, and with people on the scale, and I put it, and I'm like, look, you're 20 years old. Why your body age is 60? Like, come on, let's get serious about this life, right? Yep. So yeah, it's not over until I win. So it showed me that anything is possible if you just put your mind to it and you clear about it. And very crucial point is you don't want to have attachment to the outcome. How you gonna get it? Meaning, like you clear what you want to have, but you let go of how you're gonna receive it, and you just allow God to just bring it to you in whatever way it has to happen. Like I wanted to be on a podcast, right? I am on a podcast.
Here you are.
Right? I wanted to have raw milk. I have raw milk. Right? I want to have clients who wants to have raw milk. I have people messaging me getting raw milk, right? And even that conversation, it's not about making money on raw milk. Like there's not much money to make on raw milk. But the point is that I want the benefits for the people. And then if they want to work with me on anything else, we can work on anything else. Like
Just
we're working right now.
It's making a network.
Like we're working right now. And I learned that from my mom too. Like she would put me on her lap and she would have this like little black book and she would say like, this person does this. I know this person from here. I know this person from here. So she taught me the power of network from very early young age to do this. So back in Mexico, I'm creating these opportunities and possibilities. Sarah comes in, we have this apartment. She's not really happy about it because that's how she is. And I'm trying to navigate the relationship that's just very challenging. But I'm still like willing to make an effort and it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. She's not perfect. You know, we all doing our best. I get it. Remember?
Right.
I know. We all doing our best.
Do our best. That was number 4.
Right? Exactly. So... And my trial is coming up for this criminal harassment charge that I was arrested the year prior in 22. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go for it because they have no case. Because the definition of criminal harassment, I read it even today before coming, I was doing my live stream. The definition of harassment, it says no person who has no legal authority, who has no authority. And I have authority of my children. So already from the definition itself, they have no case to claim that I'm harassing someone because I'm only speaking about my children who I have authority over, because they have no authority over my children, right? So I know they have no case. You know, we can try to do whatever, but I know they have no case. So I'm like, and I already was able to dismiss one other smaller charge too. So I like feel very.
You were confident about this one.
I was confident because I was raised by a judge, and I also went to Moscow Law Academy for like 2 years out of the 4-year program. So I have some legal training too, and I was always like very interested in terms of like legal movies and watching litigators.
You've always been interested in it.
Yeah. I mean, when you're raised by a judge, like
you kind of just, it's like in your blood.
That's like your family business,
it's
right?
Like,
kinda.
yeah.
And my mom wanted for me to be a lawyer, kind of, right? I was still rebellious, obviously not a lawyer, but my brother is.
That's
Moscow,
funny.
Right? Obviously. So, but the point is you
were confident going into this case.
Yeah, I was confident going into this. They have no case. I'm like, and again, I wanted the opportunity to test. I wanted the opportunity to test. I wanted the opportunity to leave. I didn't have to go back. I could have lived in Mexico, forget about my son, have 2 daughters with a different woman, and just build a whole new life. But I'm committed to my children. Like I made that promise to me when I was 20 years old that if I would be in a position where the mother is preventing me from being with my children, I will not stop.
You were always going to fight for them.
I will continue. Like I made that covenant with myself, with my children before I had any children. So I'm like, I don't care. And unfortunately, for the whole situation, the mother of my daughters, she didn't like that. And I understand, right? It's been too much. It's too much drama.
It was a lot for her.
It's a lot for her, and I get it.
Process and handle, and to keep going through this cycle with you.
Yeah. So she wanted me to stop, right? She wanted me to stop. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, and I was asking, like, instead of like, can you help me? Can you help me get my son back? And she wouldn't, unfortunately. So that created additional stresses and everything else. And she always wanted to go back to Canada from Mexico. I'm like, we just got here. I don't want my children to travel. You want to travel, you can go. I don't want to go, right? And my children should be with me. So that was always fighting, contentious, etc. And then I was fearful that she would go to Canada and not come back. And it's been 300 days that she went to Canada and she's not coming back bringing my children.
Wow.
300 days.
300 days.
I'm counting every single day. Like my daughter, one just turned 2. So like half of her life she has been without a father. Right? Which is like, I don't even know how that even makes sense to anybody. And then my other daughter, she's going to be 4 in August, right? So like they're missing like 1 year of life with their father. I'm missing double life because it's like 2 daughters, right? So I'm missing with both. The time that I will never have back, never, right? They have never experienced that.
And such a crucial stage too.
This is a fundamental time, right? Like I wanted to teach them Russian. I wanted to worship God with them. I want them to be on the beach with me. I want them to see all the physical activities that we do, like your kids, right? Like I was so excited to see your children running on the beach because Mike can do the same thing. My children can play with your children. What a crazy idea, right? I know. So But that's like my case is not even that bad. Like I on top of all the initiatives, I have initiatives called favors are essential, because they are, and I see how it's not presented in that way, like how it's diminished. Like father's role is completely eliminated from society almost at this point, right? Again, replaced by the daddy government. So father's essential initiative is kind of what I've been focusing on now that I have to make a difference in my personal life and other fathers that I'm coaching and supporting along the way. But I was confident flying back to Toronto and defending myself. I knew I would be arrested at the airport.
So you flew to Canada.
I flew
You
to
were
Canada.
arrested at the airport.
I was arrested at the airport.
Went to trial.
I went to, so it was Sunday night. They put me in a police station jail. I was supposed to have a bail hearing in the morning because I have an actual trial that I'm flying in. But before I can go to my actual trial, I have to deal with the bail hearing first, because they arrested me and they now charging me with new things.
Of course.
So they're charging me with violation now of my previous bail conditions. And so Monday morning, I'm like sitting, when is my bail hearing? Oh, it's coming up. And you're sitting in the police station jail, so you have other people going into the room where they have a bail hearing. I'm like, okay, well, that person went first. Like, I have a trial today. I should be the first, but maybe I'll go second. No, like, I think it was like 1 o'clock. I'm still not bail hearing. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Oh, no, it's going to happen. Oh, no, you know what? We can't see you today. What do you mean you can't see me today? Like, what do you mean I'm not going to have a bail hearing today? I have a trial I have to go to. Well, so they tried desperately to, like, sabotage the actual trial, right? And I'm like, no, I don't care about bail hearing. Like, what are we doing here? So I protested. They finally gave me the bail hearing. And now, and they denied me bail. They denied me bail for Facebook posts. And that's where I was naive.
For Facebook posts.
That's where I was naive, because I'm coming to Canada where they release people that stop people. Like, we have people all across Canada being murdered, and the murderers are released on bail.
Which is just
it's
insane.
Nuts, absolutely nuts, right? Like, we this one guy in British Columbia, he stabbed, thank God not to death, but 2 sisters from Calgary that was visiting British Columbia, and he's under house arrest in his mom's house right now.
How nice. That makes so much sense.
So much sense, right? I mean, on the conversation of raw milk, which is illegal across Canada. Like, if I would do what I'm doing here in Miami, in Canada.
If you were sampling raw milk at the beach.
If I would be sampling raw milk.
You'd be locked up again.
I would be in a jail, yes. And people who would give me the raw milk would go to jail too, right?
Because they gave it to you.
Of course, right? So
this is extra black market in Canada.
Yeah, but crystal meth, cocaine.
That's fine.
The government will give you for free. The government will supply to you. We have safe supplies.
Stop.
Yes, I repeat.
I didn't know this.
I know you don't.
Did you say they will give you a supply? Mm-hmm. What the heck?
Because we're trying to help you this way. They're compassionate.
They're enabling you.
Well, obviously, that's why we have Vancouver is now the capital of fentanyl for the whole North America.
No way.
Yes.
So everybody just goes to Canada for fentanyl.
Because the government gives it to you for free, then they sell it, and that's how they make the money.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
That is just so jacked up.
It's bananas, absolutely bananas. So I'm flying.
So unsafe.
And they're doing this on purpose because, again, if you understand that the ultimate purpose for the government tyranny is to create stress and chaos, because then the people will be asking for safety and security, and that's how you're going to have control
and have more and abide by whatever it is that you want to have. That
the strategy is always the same. The strategy is always the same, to create problems and then provide the solution. And the solution,
like the hero,
solution will fix the problem, but at the same time, you're gonna have everything
still
else.
Unraveling everything.
Yeah. So, like, again.
Okay, so
I'm flying to. So they denied me bail. Mm-hmm. That's why I was naive.
Okay.
So they denied me bail, and they separate my charges. The bail judge is telling me that they separate the charges on purpose, because even winning my trial, I will still have to deal with these new charges at a separate trial.
Of course.
And I'm like. So I go back to my cell, I sit there, and I remember, I'm like, okay, I think I'm effed up this one. I think I pushed it too hard. I think I pushed it too far. I don't think I'm getting out. I'm literally sitting in my cell. I'm talking to God. I think I went too far this time. And I'm just praying. And you sit in this cell. Which is just like a sheet of metal. Mm-hmm. That's where you slept the night before, by the way. Now you're sitting in the cell again. It's just a sheet of metal with just like holes in it. I don't know why they do this, so I guess, whatever. And that's it. You get nothing else. I'm like, why there's like nothing? Like, there's no, forget about pillows.
There's not a sheet.
Nothing. There's nothing. It's just it's a metal sheet with like sheet metal, right? And that's where you sleep, right? And you have a toilet there and a sink, and that's all your water you have. And by the way, I was asking for like fruit juice box because I'm not drinking this water. Obviously, it's full of everything.
Imagine.
Right? Can you imagine drinking water in prison?
No, I
right?
don't want any part of that.
I mean, neither.
But
right?
it's like crap. What if you don't have anything else? Eventually, you're gonna end up drinking it because you have to.
I was literally dehydrated. Think about, I flew in from Mexico, humidity of Mexico, after living there for like months at the time.
Now you're in Dagenham,
And now
Canada,
I'm
locked up on a piece of cold metal.
Yeah, with no fluids.
Nothing.
I'm asking for juice boxes. The officer the night before on Sunday gave me like 3, and on Monday they only gave me 1, and they didn't want to give me any more.
No,
Of course not. I'm like,
of course not.
right? So, and I'm sitting in the cell. I'm praying to God. I think I really screwed up this one. And then they transfer me, and so that was not like even the
Final destination.
the final destination, because now they have to transfer me to the maximum security detention center.
Oh, maximum security. But homeboy who stabbed the sisters is at home at his mom's house on house
good.
arrest.
It's all good there. Yeah, there is
Loving
no
it.
problem. This is the Chinadistan that
Loving it.
Yeah, right. Chinadistan.
Okay.
Yeah. So Stan means a country in like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, where I'm from. So I'm just trying to create a little similarity of you know, I'm trying to call things how they are instead of what people think they are, right? So it's not Canada, it's Chinadistan. So they transfer me now. So they obviously it's like the whole process of getting transferred to this facility, and this facility is literally like Shawshank Redemption. So it's like strip search, orange jumpsuit, and you're there with
You're
like
ready.
violent offenders,
Yep.
like people charged with murder. Yeah, and you're like, okay, I guess
I fit in so well.
I guess this is the experience, but fortunately for me, again, God told me like you have to wear so you can identify yourself. So I'm wearing this hoodie, which was the highest selling hoodie in Truckers Convoy protest in February of 22, and it says on the right side of the history with a Canadian flag, and
they took it from you and burned it.
well, we had to change from all the clothes because again it's a strip search and orange jumpsuit. But before I was walking in that hoodie in that facility, so all the guards saw me, all the prisoners saw me.
knew.
They know who I am. Like you want to identify who you are, right? So then when you're in that environment, you want to identify who you are. So then you can be prioritized on the food chain, right?
I don't know if that was setting you up for success on that food chain.
I had to do whatever I had to do, right? So but fortunately, that actually worked in my favor because one of the guys who was there in charge, he told to the guards to put me in the cell with him. And fortunately for me, he was the anti-vaxxer too. Okay. So he recognized the Freedom hoodie. So he understood that I'm also like anti-vaxxer. And
Well, that was very nice of your cellmate to vouch for you and welcome you into his
well,
cell.
so part of my thinking that the reason why they wanted me to be locked up is because they probably wanted for me to get hurt, because you can be locked up with a cell because it's 2 people per cell. So like once they, process you like they did with everyone, like strip search or jumpsuit, identify what you're there for, if you have a trial tomorrow, because from that place you would be going to the trial in the morning. So
they wanted you to be locked up with somebody.
with someone who would hurt me, right? And God protected me to put me in the cell with a guy who actually was charged with killing his girlfriend, supposedly. I don't know if that would happen, but that's what he was there for. Wow. Yeah. But because he was anti-vaxxer and he wanted to clean up his life.
Y'all could somewhat relate.
Yeah, we spend the night discussing different things, and he was like crying. He's a junkie. He wants to clean up his life. He wants to start a natural deodorant company, and he just wants to
A
be
natural
better.
deodorant company.
Yeah, and
You were inspiring him, Vlad.
well,
Bringing him closer to God.
He shared that
You were
with
his
me.
light.
No, I know I was there on purpose for sure. Whatever my mission was in his life, or for me to get the message that I got, which I'll say in a moment too. But I know I was supposed to be there in that cell for purpose because he was abused by that woman. I don't know what happened with them, but he said like she was using me as an ashtray, and I'm not even a smoker, and I just like couldn't get away from her. And I can see that. Like I kid you not, 3 days ago, I'm cycling in South Beach. And I see this couple walking. It's like 10 p.m. on Euclid Avenue, okay, in like 11th.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's weird. And I'm like cycling behind them slow. And I'm like, did she just kick him? Did she just kick him? And I'm like, huh? And I'm like cycling, and I'm like, and God tells me, turn around. I turned around. I go behind them. I turn off my light. And I just cycling slow. And she kicks him again. Huh? And then she punches him in the face.
Gosh.
And I'm like, excuse me? And then he runs away from her playfully. But this happens all the time, right? And then I caught up to him, and I'm like, bro, like, you leave this woman, man. Don't be with her, man. Oh, it's none of your business. It's a shame, right? Like, how can you get out of that? who knows how much different
What
things
the
they
whole
have going on.
dynamics of everything.
But this is happens all the time, right? This is happens way more than people are willing to admit and recognize. And again, if you're not aware of the problem, how are you going to fix it? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And yeah, it happens on both sides. But like, can we address this specific issue without bringing everything else into conversation? But that's the challenge. You know, as soon as you address men's issues, everyone has to bring women's issues in that conversation. Can we just address them separately?
Address them
Like
separately.
nobody's bringing men's issues when you're discussing about women's issues, right? Like you don't do that.
Right.
Why is the other way there? So
Addressing the issues separately.
yeah,
That never
so
happened.
anyway, so I'm in the cell with this guy,
Uh-huh.
and God protected me, and I knew God was protecting me when I was just walking to the cell. Imagine, like it's on the second floor. Imagine like Shawshank Redemption, kind of like inside, like any prison inside. Like there's like it's the doors open and close. This one was not cage; it was just like a door, like with a glass and whatever, right?
Okay.
But it's like 2 floors. There's a watch tower to watch over all the prisoners, right? Make sure nobody's like doing anything messy, whatever, right? And so I'm going to this, and I'm like one of the last guys going into the cell. Like they kept me one of the last people to go into my cell. I'm like, okay, who knows where I'm going? I have no idea, right? What I'm walking into. And so they take me to the second floor. They open this door of the cell, and I'm not even walking in. I'm still standing outside of the cell, and I already see. I'm gonna try to control myself. I already see on top of the top bunk. So there's 2 bunk beds welded into the wall. And the guy sitting on the bottom bunk that I already recognized him from before.
Hope is written in pencil.
HOPE. In big letters like this.
Wow.
Inside of the O, there's Irish cross. And I'm walking into it, and I know I'm protected because that was November 27th. And November 28th, when I walked out of that cell after spending night with that man, and we had a lot of different conversations. And he just wanted to be better in life, and he was caught up in all the unfortunate things and
That
spiraled
it just
down.
happened, right?
Right? Who knows? And he's just desperate. And I'm like sharing with him, like I just flew here like the night before from Mexico. I was running on the beach with the sunrise every day, and now I'm stuck here, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I might be spending a lot of time in the jail. I don't know. They literally denied me bail. They separate my charges. They told me even if I win my trial, I'm still going to be locked up. God knows for how long. They already told me this. But I know I'm protected because my grandma, my mom's mom, name is Nadezhda. Was Nadezhda, she passed away now. But in English, it means hope.
That's crazy.
So I walked into that cell with no fear because I knew I was protected in that cell. And once I talked to the guy, I knew I was protected because the guy asked the guards to put me in the cell with him. So then nothing would happen to me. And then later, as I'm walking in that cell, just looking at different walls, Mexican power was written on 2 different places.
Wow. In the same cell.
I'm in the same cell with the guy. Hope is on top of
And
the
then
wall and big,
Mexican
and
power.
Mexican power like maybe this big on 2 different sides of the walls. Like there's other things written in pencil because and even those pencils, the guys have to sneak in, right? Like it's not like they allow to have those things, right? I wish I had the phone to take a picture, but obviously I had nothing, right?
Yeah.
And later I thought maybe I should have reached out to somebody. Maybe somebody or the guards could take a pictures for me to have it for like memory. Obviously it didn't happen, but like what are the chances? Because you guys into fighting, do you know the term Mexican fighter? It's like the Mexican fighters, they just don't give up. Like they're just like a bulldog, they don't stop. Like if it's a Mexican boxer, you're gonna have a good fight. Because those guys they just go. They don't stop,
There's no
right?
stopping them.
So there's no stopping. So
your cell literally had hope, Mexican power, everything.
I'm walking out of a cell on my grandma's birthday, whose name is Hope. The birth attending midwife in Canada, you're not allowed to be called midwife if you're not licensed by the government. So they have to call themselves alternative birth attendant, whatever. Her name was Hope. That was assisting us with Ava's birth. It's just like
all the things
signs sprinkled around. So I go to the trial. We have all this nonsense going back and forward. They forcing me to plead guilty because they don't want to have a trial. And I know they don't want to have a trial because I know they have no case. So they're forcing me to plead guilty. The Crown prosecutor goes and to my face like this, tells me, the judge was off the bench, so it's off the record. Just want to make sure you know, this is what she tells me, that if you won't win this trial, you're still going to be locked up because you have to deal with other charges and it's going to take some time. And I'm like, I know. So they literally coerced me because they denied me water. Now in this maximum security detention center, I had milk, on a conversation of milk. They gave us little packets of milk, obviously not raw milk. right?
That was some good stuff.
So and I tasted it. It tasted so bad. I still remember like how horrible that thing. And God only knows what was inside of that thing. But I can't drink this water. I can't drink prison water. So literally in 2 days being locked up, I was probably so dehydrated coming from Mexico, running on beach, the ocean, and then being locked up in dry Toronto. Like dry winter Toronto is not nice. It's very tough. Like it's just you're like a
They were
prune.
drying you out.
You're like a what do you call that? A raisin.
Raisin.
Right? So so I'm like, yeah, I have to plead guilty and get out because I'm not staying here. And the reason why I have to get out because I have to go back to Mexico because in Mexico I have 2 little daughters with their mother, and I also signed the 8-year lease contract for 3-story building with Mexicans. A Russian guy with no Spanish signs a 8-year.
Mexican power, Vlad.
I was channeling it. I was really channeling all the power. Like, you know how many people told me don't do business with Mexicans,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you do understand this is Mexico, right? You want to do business with Mexico?
you
I'm like,
sure?
I want to do business. I want to do business. If I have to do business with Mexicans, well, I want to do business. Okay, I'm all about doing
You're
business.
creating your life there.
I want to build a new life. I wanted to have a best success story. Like, how quickly can I get a mortgage? Like, I wanted to be like a success story. How quickly can I get a Mexican mortgage by just being a permanent resident, right? I just want to see what's possible and show to other people what's possible for them. I want to be an example of that because other people example of that for me, and I want to be example like of that for my children first, the most, like we discussed. Wherever I am with them or not, I'm still being an example in my life. This is what I want fathers to understand. Even the fathers who are prevented by being with their children, if you choose to leave and not kill yourself, which happens most of the time, unfortunately, and I'm very passionate about preventing that because I believe we are part in this world where you have death cult that wants to abort you before you're born. And if you don't succeed with aborting you before you're born, we're doing everything they can for you to abort yourself. I look at the suicide as you aborting yourself, right? And I think like this is why this whole thing is out there to subvert people from that. But the conversation is like I created these anchors for me to go back to Mexico. So yeah, I took the plead guilty, whatever, and I just it's fine. I'm out of here because I just wanted to test. I knew there was no, I had no privileges
Regardless
left.
of what you were going to do, they were going to get you for something.
Exactly.
It didn't matter.
No,
so
it didn't matter.
Am I going to prolong my suffering in this jail cell, or am I just going to succumb to whatever it is they want so I can move on?
I just wanted to move on. Like I wanted to test how bad things really are, and then I realized how bad they really are, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't need to be here. We have to separate. There's no saving what's already there in China-Istan. There's opportunity to build something new, but there's absolutely no point saving what's been rotten to the core. Like that's how I see it. The whole system between education, between indoctrination, let's call it properly, between indoctrination system, not education system, between sick care, not health care, right?
That's so true.
Right? And between corruption, not, legal system, right? Like all that has to be just unplugged from on the conversation of the matrix. You just have to unplug from that and just build something new and fresh, right? So yeah, this is when I flew back to Mexico after being convicted criminal with 3-year probation. They also gave me 2 extra years. Initially, the prosecutor said that if you plead guilty, I'm just going to give you 1 year probation. As soon as I said, okay, fine, I'm pleading guilty to 1 year probation. As soon as I said, the judge was asking me, are you pleading guilty? Yes, I am pleading guilty. As soon as I said that, the prosecutor jumps up, is like, we're going to add additional charges. We're going to add multiple counts to the same charge. So then instead of 1 year probation, now we're asking for 3 years probation.
That's so shady.
Oh,
but that's just...
But I'm like, okay, I'm going to allow you... what's her name? Mel Robinson, I think she wrote a book, Let Them, but it actually comes from scripture as well, where you have to let people do what they're going to do. Because in that process, they're going to expose themselves more. And that's good for you because at the end of the day, it's about wisdom and awareness, right? You need to know about your environment, both in terms of the people you surround yourself, as well as the environment that you're subjected to in terms of influence, etc. And I believe in that. I believe in that you should have no fear, and sometimes you gotta let people do what they do. My favorite things that I also learned recently that even Jesus needed Judah to get to the cross. Just like when you understand that even Jesus was betrayed, right? Like the most perfect
person
that walked this earth got betrayed. Like we are all, like, what do you think? Going to
So
be immune
we're
to that?
bound to.
Yeah, it's going to
being
happen.
betrayed.
So you have to let people do what they do, and you do your best within that environment, and you learn from all the experiences. It's always a learning experience, right? And like I said with
Absolutely.
Les Brown, it's not over until I win. So it's just a matter of time. So like even with my children, right now I'm having like a Facebook battle with their mother because she's even refusing. She took them from Mexico. She's refusing to bring them back.
You went back to Mexico because you pled guilty.
Yeah.
She left Mexico.
She left Mexico
to
within
Canada.
6 months after that.
And then she went to Canada.
Canada,
The
and
one
then-
place you're not allowed to go.
Literally, she told me, I don't care if you cannot go there. She literally told me,
So you're in a battle with her to
Yeah.
try to. It's been 300 days. You're trying to.
I'm just
continue
telling her,
to
like,
fight for your
the
kids.
children need to be returned to their father. Like, you have no right to keep them children away from the father. They have to be with the father. You cannot dictate me, because she's desperately trying to stay in control over me, right? This is what women do, unfortunately. When they cannot control the man, they're going to use the children to control the man. Because for a good man, children is his Achilles heel. Like, it's the weak spot, right? And that's why the agenda is so evil, because they go after the women so then they can go after the man. Because strong men are not going to be subdued by the government. Strong men will be subdued by their woman, because that's, the story of Delilah, right? The strongest man was corrupted by Delilah, right? So I'm kind of living life,
You're just living.
I have my own Delilah situation,
Yes.
which is, again, you have to let them. And the other thing on that conversation of 10 year ago post that I made, I was thinking about this. Like I'm in a lot of, like, when you experience some different things, you have to be in the space of kind of meditation and just kind of like absorbing all this experience and trying to figure out, like, what does it even mean, and
Make sense
how
of it
can
all.
you, like, walk through this path in a way where it actually can be beneficial rather than bring you down. And I think it's that approach that helps me just carry on, because I understand that pretty much any man will go through what I'm going through right now, and I'd rather go through it now than later. So I'm purposely choosing, if I'm going to have all these seasons of turmoil, I'd rather go through them at this stage of my life than later. Because they are guaranteed, right? Life are like changing seasons. Again, Jim Rohn always teaches that. Like, winter follows by spring, spring follows by summer, summer follows by fall. It's a cycle, right? Some seasons can be longer, some seasons can be shorter. But again, cycles never
you're
change.
going to go through it.
Right? So if
You're
already
choosing to deal with
yeah,
it now.
I
versus
choose to deal with those things now.
putting it off and not facing it head on.
I choose to go and take a risk by leasing 3-story building from Mexicans that a year later they chased me out of that building. Right? Because I couldn't pay the rent anymore, because I had no money left, because I was trying to control everything, and then when my children left, I got so depressed. Right?
So then you just lost everything.
Yeah, I like, there's no purpose, right? Like, once man doesn't have his children,
You were broken.
you're broken and you have no purpose. If there's no point to continue doing what you're doing, like, who are you doing this for anyway, right?
So they left. Things
Yeah.
fell apart in Mexico. You lost the building.
Yeah. And then I'm sitting in Mexico and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like
So you came to the U.S.
yeah, I came to
legally
US.
or illegally? How does that work?
No. So I talked to God, like the same way I did before, and how I said, like, if I'm not gonna get arrested for the weekend, I'm taking off and to Mexico, etc. So I talked to God, like, if you want me to go to Florida, just I don't want to get arrested, okay?
Yeah.
Like, if you tell me to go there, I think you doing this because I'm not gonna be arrested and I'm not gonna get deported.
So that's what brought you to Miami.
I flew to Fort Lauderdale, and I walked to the agent, and he asked me questions, and I said what I said, like, I'm here, I have my Canadian passport, 6 months is usually what Canadians can go in, and yeah, he let me in. And I'm like, what are the chances that I just walked in with no issues, right? And everyone was shocked, including my son's mother and her lawyers and the government lawyers, because they all wanted for me to go back to Canada to have a trial, now family court trial. That's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole nother thing.
That, by the
So
way,
they were all shocked that you actually
that I was able
came-
to enter. And they asked me during my trial, different trial, not the one that criminal one. I had a Zoom trial in January of this year for my custody of my son. 2-week Zoom trial that I was self-representing myself. Nuts. I'll tell you a story after about this. Maybe we'll do a next follow-up, just on that alone.
Follow-up part 2.
Yeah, for sure. They asked me, like, how did you get into the United States being a criminal? I just looked at them and said, God provided. And he did, absolutely. Like, there's no, like, when I had hope written in the cell, like I literally walked into the lines of them, like, Lion's
Den.
Right? Like I walked into Lion's Den and I walked out of it, protected, right? But also I knew that I shouldn't be going back because that was definitely my like last test.
Like I'm done with this.
No, so everyone, including the mother of my daughters and the mother of my son and her lawyers, they all wanted for me to go back to Canada. I'm like, no. If all of you wanted for me to go back to Canada, I'm definitely not going because I know I'm not safe there.
Right.
No,
It's just a setup.
It's a setup for sure because I know at this point, if you're gonna lock me up, I'm not getting out. So I'm not taking any risk.
You don't want to.
No, there's no
gamble
point.
twice.
No.
So after 6 months, where are you going?
So I'm gonna be claiming political asylum here.
Okay, so January started your 6 months. Now you're gonna claim.
I'm gonna claim this month because I came in December. So
Okay.
this is my. I have to do it this month.
So
I'm gonna
what
be
does that
claiming.
mean?
So I'm gonna claim political asylum to stay here.
Okay.
And my case will be reviewed, and if it's approved, then I can stay. And if it's not approved, I have to leave.
Then you're gonna go.
If I have to
You'll
leave,
figure it out.
I'll go back to Mexico most likely.
Most likely.
Because
Okay.
it's the closest place. I have permanent residency. You know, that's.
So you go back to Mexico. You can always come back to the U.S. for another 6 months.
Well, I don't know. Once I apply for my I don't know what
Political
that.
asylum. You don't really know how
I don't
it's
know.
all gonna play out.
I don't know how if I'm gonna be able to come back as well. You know, because
Okay.
again, everything is up in the air.
So much unknown.
But I take it one day at a time. I'm doing my best now here. I'm maximizing the efforts. You know, having conversations with you, having conversations with other people. I'm partnering up with a clinic that helps manage diabetes here to help them expand. You know, obviously distribution of raw milk. We'll have to talk about that now. And then, you know, helping you guys and like anything else.
Yes, so
all the
Milkman of
opportunities.
Florida.
Right?
Let's talk
Let's
about
talk
it.
about that.
Okay.
Now that we finished all the
Now,
political craziness
Your
that
story is just, I mean, you've obviously have gone through it.
By the way,
live,
if you
and
want to support and you want to learn about my story, coachvlad.com is the site for my upcoming book.
Okay.
So,
CoachVlad.com.
yeah, that's the website for my upcoming book.
Good.
The book is called Father of a Scamdemic, as the article written about me from 5 years ago.
That's the Google search.
Right? And then the cover is literally me in front of the Parliament Hill in Ottawa during truckers' convoy protest that I was part of organizing too, by the way. That's also like a crazy story where I'm literally I chartered buses of people to bring from Toronto to Ottawa. Ottawa during lockdowns with police.
No wonder.
Ottawa, right? Ottawa
No
police.
wonder.
Ottawa police is emailing me. It's like, you're not allowed to do this. I just ignore them.
You just did what you had.
And then so they created. You have to know this. This is how crazy it is, and this is from 3 years ago, 22. Once they broke down the protest after 3 weeks of standoff, they literally brought army. They brought army with machine guns, etc. Like people got beat up. It was nuts. It was literally like Tiananmen Square, but in Ottawa.
This is crazy.
And people don't know. People have no idea how nuts it was there. And they created fictitious red zone around like the main part of Parliament Hill, Ottawa, and like maybe like 5 minutes drive each way, right? And I organized the protest on the other side of the red zone. Like literally, the intersection on this side is red zone. On this side of intersection, protest. The Ottawa police walked across and told me to my face, if I cross this intersection to the other side with a Canadian flag, I will be arrested. And I'm like, yes, that's why I'm going to stay on this side, because you guys think this is fictitious. Like, so on this side of the street, I have no rights. And on this side of the street, I have rights. Like clown world. I'm telling you, clown world. Right? So yeah, so this is life in Canada where raw milk is illegal for decades.
It's legal here too.
So we need.
So that's why we
need
have
to change. We need to make a change,
and we have to make more people aware of it.
Yeah.
The benefits of raw milk.
Let's talk about benefits of raw milk.
Like,
what do you guys notice? Like for you?
I will just say. So as for my family and I, we were an anti-dairy family. We could not tolerate.
And that's a good point to make.
We could not tolerate any dairy. So from GI effects, you know, my daughter's eczema flares, allergy, asthma, all the things, right? For me, it was like, you know, gut, acne, just nobody could tolerate any dairy. So we were just anti-dairy because we didn't even know. Well, a few years ago, I, you know, kept hearing about raw dairy products, how it's more tolerable for people that can't tolerate pasteurized dairy products. I'm like, what the heck does even raw dairy mean? Anyways, that kind of started my rabbit hole, and then I was on this search for finding raw dairy products
and
for
this is what year you think?
my family. Well, it's 2025, so it's probably like 2022.
Okay.
Maybe like 2022, 2021.
Okay.
Sometime around there.
Like after the lockdown started.
Let me think about this. Legend was born in 2023. And so he was going to, he was born in 2023, right? 19, 21, 22, 23. Yes. Okay, whatever.
Okay.
So around this time.
So after
I
2020.
switched, yes, after COVID.
Got it.
COVID life Bubba was small. So after
Yeah.
COVID. Anyway, so I was on this hunt to find raw dairy products. You know, we travel all the time for the kids' sports and stuff like that. So I was just on this kick of finding, you know, sources of raw dairy.
Yes.
Anyways, switched us over. No GI issues. Eczema improved. Allergies improved.
And how long? Like
asthma.
within 3 months, you would say?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
I mean, I could tell a difference because they could actually have it and nobody would get upset. I wouldn't get upset stomach. My husband wouldn't get upset stomach. Like that was instant.
Right.
Because if we had dairy before, good Lord, I'm not going to sit in a room with you, you know? But that was an instant thing that I'm like, this is something special, right? And so that's really what got me put on this kick of like, you know, recognizing and starting to pay more attention to the foods and stuff that we were eating as a family.
Good.
I mean, this goes before the raw dairy thing. My husband, we were gluten-free. We went just straight carnivore and we're just eating meat for like six months at a time, I believe. And then we kind of switched over to more animal-based and added fruits and stuff in. But literally, he threw everything out in the house. I had no idea what I was going to feed the kids because I was used to feeding them crap. You know, easy grab-and-go stuff, right? So that was really the turning point.
Okay, good.
And we did not have dairy at that point in time. Then we added the raw dairy back in, and it was just like incredible. My kids could have ice cream again. They could have a glass of milk. Like we were all thriving. Okay, so that's really what just started this whole venture. And
is it true that you actually are the ones who inspired or encouraged or assisted Amina and Steve to get it going?
Yes, because they thought I was crazy. Like, they didn't understand why it had to be raw. And, like, you know,
how long do you know
Steve
that?
grew up on pasteurized, so he was going to be fine. And I'm like, you guys don't understand.
Wow.
It's amazing. Like, you just have to try it. And people think it's weird when I talk about raw and
Yeah.
at first.
Sure.
Right? But then it's like, there's more and more study.
Yeah,
and, you know, I have, I guess you could call it anecdotal evidence from my patients and stuff and their own testimonies of being lactose intolerant and not able to tolerate dairy. But, you know, when you compare pasteurized milk to raw milk, you're getting, when you pasteurize milk, you're degrading the nutrients, you're degrading the minerals, you know, vitamins and minerals. You're altering those beneficial enzymes. You're degrading the protein content. You're making it more immunogenic. So it's no wonder people can't tolerate it. Right?
So, and it obviously depends. Some processes use more artificial stuff, chemicals, whatever else they use. You know, some may be cleaner. But at the end of the day, you're messing with it, right? You're doing something with it.
You're altering what nature intended it to be.
Exactly, what God made it. And then that's why I call it biblical food. And for me, this is the ultimate purpose. And I think there's even stem cells within raw milk, right? So it's just like
you have growth factors, you have antibodies. Like there's epidemiological studies that have proven time and time again that children who grew up drinking raw dairy products, they have less asthma, they have less allergies, they have less, you know, respiratory issues. So
immune system. So because it's
stronger immune system,
so good for your health, for your gut, and then immune system and mental health and everything starts from your gut, right?
Everything starts from your gut. Everything. It is your second brain.
So this is how I am packaging everything together between my health coaching that I've been doing since 2000. So now for 25 years, I've been making America healthy again unofficially. Between being a health coach in Canada, being permanent resident of Mexico, and also working in the United States, and knowing that raw milk is the simplest, easiest one food with no other preparation that someone can consume on a regular day basis to become healthy in the process.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we just come from that simple kind of breakdown, and if this is something that we can help get out there more, by just that single focus, we can make America healthy again. And that's how I think we can really push forward. And at the same time, especially in places where it's illegal and really bad, like in Canada, that becomes an action of rebellion. And to me, this is why I think the tyranny was so easily spread, especially in the Western world, is because people are not really rebellious here because they never had to, they get conditioned to be compliant to all the rules and stuff. And if you're always following all the rules, breaking anything, it will be just against your nature. So it's almost like by encouraging and empowering people to consume raw milk, especially in places where it's quote unquote illegal,
But we have states where it is legal.
It is,
so
right?
it doesn't make sense where I can go to cross state lines and I can go and purchase raw milk.
Right.
So it's like, why is it being...
Yeah. So I think this is where it's like the perfect time now with the federal administration, and then obviously you have state administration that can be influenced, and I think Florida is definitely the place to do it.
I think this is a great place to start.
Best
like this is, I feel like we have the best chances
I think so.
of actually making change in this state.
Yeah, I think you have already ban on fluoride. You have come up ban on geoengineering soon. Still doing it. We've still been spraying a lot last week. That's why all the rain is happening. I believe that for sure. That's why a lot of people are sniffling and stuff. Is because of stuff we're spraying. I knew that in Toronto right away. Once we start spraying, I always would get allergies. I'm very into, because once your body is clean, you respond to your environment right away. That's why I can't listen to anything, right? Like, it has to be on headphones, wired headphones, because even if I bring the phone to my ear, like I'm always on speaker on my headphones for years. I don't have a microwave for the last 25 years.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Right? It's just it cannot be part of your environment, because if it is, it's going to affect you, whether you like it or not. And in some places you might not have as much, opportunity to change your environment, but where you can, you have to. You absolutely have to. So for me, this is kind of the act of rebellion, especially for my Canadian family that I still want to support, even though living here in exile, like I said. But I think this is a beautiful time for us to build a network of people who wants to be part of this raw milk revolution. And if you want to be part of the raw milk revolution, you can go on coachvlad.com and you can submit your information on the first page even before getting the book. And we can put you in a database to kind of help you get access to raw milk anywhere. And if you want to help us expand this network, this is what we can do. We can really build people who want to be ambassadors of raw milk. And again, this is not about making money. There's not really money to make, but it's the access to the food that everyone's rights to have.
I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can go. There are farmers and there's farms that you can get access to it, right? I mean, realmilk.com is like my best friend with traveling. I put in my zip code wherever we're going to be, and that's how I find local farms that are around me. Perfect. And there's all this propaganda of raw milk being so dangerous, and like, when's the last time somebody died from raw milk? And you have to think back to where this all stemmed from. Over 100 years ago, these cows were living in filth. Okay, you don't have sanitary milking conditions. They're being fed crap.
But did you know that Rockefeller was the one that started pasteurization over 100 years ago?
Okay, it makes money. It's gonna last longer on the shelf.
No, but they did this.
It's cheaper.
It's the same company, quote unquote company, that basically subjected the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, like they all...
It's infiltration and corruption.
It's on all the levels, right?
So people get on, anytime I talk about raw milk or whatever, people get on their high horse. They get really offended and upset that I'm, an advocate for raw milk. But truth be told, you have way more contamination that's going on in lettuce, and E. coli and spinach go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like, it's just like part of it. And if you have a reputable farmer that, emphasizes cleanliness, quality control of the milking, the handling, the storage, transportation, finding a reputable source is the most important thing. And if you can do that for your family, I think that is just taking a huge step for your ultimate longevity and overall health.
It is, for sure.
So it's a sacrifice, right? I mean, I would drive hours to go and find these, this access for my family, because for me, it's like, pay for it now or pay for it later.
And that's it. And that's how people should look at it. Like, it's going to be sacrificed one way or the other. And yes, none of us live forever, but if you're making these choices where it optimizes your life, you have more vitality in your later years.
Yes, it's all about just leveling up your health and your well-being,
the
and
quality of life
the quality of life.
Yeah.
My kids can eat ice cream and they can have cheese and they can
can
enjoy those little indulgences with the raw dairy products, and I think that's a huge win.
It's the best one. It's the best one.
And I feel good about what I'm putting on their plate and what I'm providing for them. So
important.
For me, that's super important, because we always talk about modeling, practicing what we preach, instilling these habits in them while they're young so that they can grow up with this and pass it on to their families, and really just establishing strong roots for them to succeed later in life.
So true. And by the way, the connection with Kazakhstan, how you know the second person from Kazakhstan, the Amina, who I'm getting the raw milk from, is your friends.
Yes,
And
she's from Kazakhstan.
It's like, but that just shows you how everything's connected. And
Right.
even the guy from church, his name is Robert. He's the one that I asked from church to help me call some of the suppliers to see. He's from Puerto Rico. And then Steve is Puerto Rican. He calls himself. I'm like, it has to.
That's just so funny. Like the chances of.
Right?
So, okay, when Vlad came up to me on the beach with his raw milk and was wanting us to sample it, I'm like, oh, well, we get, we're a raw milk family. It was the Hubbard's Cupboards milk. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? What are the chances
That's exactly
that, like, you get your milk from Hubbard's Cupboards? How funny. So it's just like he's from Kazakhstan, she's from Kazakhstan. Like, the whole circle and how it all intertwined was just absolutely crazy. But I mean, I love to see that more people are being health conscious. They're making these decisions and being proactive about their nutrition, which is so huge because we've been lied to about what's healthy and what's not healthy for so long. And Make America Healthy Again, part of that is, making raw milk legal and improving the access to these products. I love that we're getting rid of, the 9 different food dyes that are going to be out of our kids' food system. I say kids' food system, but our food system, and it just makes such a huge impact of where we're going, the direction that we're going. So it's super exciting, and I'm all about it.
And I'm glad you brought the kids into conversation. I'll send you the clip from this audio that Robert sent to me, because I think it was the second time, or was it the first time? I think actually the first time we went to pick up the milk. Because I don't have a car. Like, think about this. I'm willing to take chances of create a distribution of milk with no car.
Yep.
Like, I get on a bicycle, right?
We just need some really good ice packs. We got to keep it cold. Right? It is fragile.
No, for sure. But so what I'm getting to is, like, I have to ask people, like, to help me with this. But I'm willing to kind of go
Robert's on board. He's
right?
down.
Right?
Down for the cause. Raw milk raw again.
So we're driving with Robert to pick up this milk. And I kid you not, he puts a Fox radio station. And they're literally talking about bringing more fatty milk into schools for children. As we are picking up milk, and I'm talking Robert, I recorded on my phone as he was doing, but then he sent me the full clip. I'll send you the clip.
Yeah, you have to
like,
send that
this is all connected, and it's all on purpose, and that's how you have to go all in.
For sure.
So we're gonna make this year definitely America healthy, and when I say America too, it's the whole continent for me. Of course, we're in United States of America, but for me, when I say America,
you've been, you're.
Yeah, I take charge of Canada, United States, and Mexico, and I think raw milk is the best way to build the initial network of people who wants to be healthy and wealthy at the same time, because once you gain your health, you should be wealthy too, because that's how you make yourself independent. If you're able to improve both areas of your life, you don't have to rely on anyone, including the daddy government. So
there you go.
I think ultimately
health is wealth, Vlad.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
It's the purpose for us to live fulfilling life and be an example to our children, and I'm just excited of opportunities that are unfolding and being present to people like yourself. And
for sure,
it's
we have to advocate.
Blessing.
We have to educate, and that's
come together. We have to come together, and that's what we're doing.
You need that community to spread the word.
We do
positivity.
We do,
okay,
sure.
so
tell me.
This was amazing.
Yes.
You gave us like all the juice.
All the
so
stuff.
much.
So much.
So much going on. Loved it. Okay, but the name of this podcast is I Need More From You. So Vlad, I need more from you. What is next on your list?
So
what do you want to accomplish next?
So for this month specifically, it's a big step to file my political asylum. That's like, going to be interesting to observe how the process and what happens next. And at the same time, I'm definitely committed to make America healthy again. I'm also committed to make America godly again. I think
Amen.
There's a real assault on Jesus and Christianity, and Christian lives matter.
Absolutely.
So I think that's my calling, to just elevate Christian men specifically, to be proud of a man who God made them to be, instead of a society that's shaming them for being men that God made them to be. So I'm passionate about that. Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
That's super cool.
I appreciate that.
Being bold in your faith.
Yes.
We shot.
Unapologetic.
Yes, we shot a podcast about my baptism story. And so I just think that that's so beautiful, and, being bold in your faith and sharing that testimony, and goodness, have you gone through it, but you still remain,
I never been closer
faithful.
to God than I am now.
Yes.
And that's, I remember I was struggling with that before last 2 years. I was struggling with idea of how can I love God more than I love my own children. And the way you do it is when you don't have anyone, like literally no one. Like even my own father disowned me because of the whole other situation, and my mother was not agreeing with me being so stubborn. You have to, happy wife, happy life. Try to, like, I can't. I'm
happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I say that, but my husband says happy husband, happy wife, and I get it because, I mean, if he's not happy, the whole household is
and
just.
And that's it, right? So and the focus. But the focus should be on being holy and righteous.
Holy, righteous, faith, having Christ, having a Christ-centered marriage,
marriage,
Christ-centered life. And
did you know that the couples that pray every single day, only 1% of them get divorced?
Praise the Lord. My husband makes sure that we pray together every single day.
That is so good.
Even when I don't want to hear his prayer, if I'm aggravated, we're still going to pray together.
Even more reasons to do it.
Even more reasons to pray together. And it's so true. Christ at the center of all that you do.
Yeah. It's so essential, and so that's why I think it's important for us to move forward in this way and just to glorify God in our life and just walk in faith and understand that if we're focusing on happiness, then we get corrupted by the flesh, right? And of this world, right? We are in this world, but we're not made of this world. Like, Jesus wants us to be in heaven, right? But we are living here, and it's our life to live and acquire the wisdom in the process. But it's through it's by grace, through faith, for God's work. I literally listened to this on the way here on the podcast.
My husband always, in our prayers, we pray to be like salt that pierces meat, the brightest shining stars in darkness and in light. So whatever darkness is trying to surround you, always be the light. And I think if you... Go for it.
It's it. Like on the way here, I'm just like, I forgot to show this to you, and we're talking about God. Of all the streets that I can take coming here, I'm literally passing this house, and it's like covered a little bit behind the car, but there's literally 10 commandments. I take a picture. This house has 10 commandments that I'm randomly cycling through.
That's awesome. I love that. Super cool.
As I'm listening to the podcast, how you exit Matrix biblically.
There we go. So full circle, all the things. Vlad, this was an incredible experience. Thank you for sharing your story, for just being here today. It was an awesome episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like today's episode, subscribe for more. If you want to check out Coach Vlad, he's on Instagram as well, at Coach Vlad.
Correct.
That's it.
And then Facebook is Vladislav Sobolev, my full name. We'll put it in the caption.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. And you have your website too.
CoachVlad.com is where you can pre-order the book and also get on my distribution for everything that I'm going to be coming on. You can do that without purchasing the book if you just submit your information.
Join the raw milk movement to make America healthy again.
One glass of milk at a time.
Milk raw again.
Yeah, let's make milk raw again to make America healthy again. One glass of raw milk at a time.
Amen to that, for sure. Cheers. Drink lit.
Let's go. Let's get lit on lit.
There you go. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Subscribe so that you can hear more. This podcast does not establish a patient-provider relationship, nor is it medical advice. If you'd like to see me as a patient, please contact my team so you can thrive.